Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
And our guest needs no introduction. It's the amazing Nemo the Mormon. How are you, Nemo?
I'm very well. Very, very well.
And I'm guessing that everybody can make an assumption about what we're going to talk about today, given Nemo's wonderful shirt. Yes. Can you
Yes.
rise, Nemo? Look at this. Yes. And this isn't just a shirt that, he ordered off Amazon. This shirt was hard won because tell us where you got this shirt, Nemo.
I got this shirt at a little stall outside the town council meeting in Fairview, Texas.
That's right.
They were
If you
selling
missed
merch.
the
There you
merch,
go.
I can't imagine anybody watching missed this, that Nemo actually attended the town council meeting in Fairview, Texas. If you have, look back through any of our videos, any Mormonish or, Nemo's videos,
Yeah.
everybody's covered this extensively. It was pretty exciting. It was on Mormon Stories too, when Nemo showed up at the city council meeting to speak his piece. How did you
Yeah.
feel? How did you,
That
I
was
don't,
great.
yeah.
I was very excited. I felt very jet lagged, obviously, but I got into the swing of it very quickly. I got up there and delivered what I needed to deliver,
Yeah.
and hopefully made it worth it for those who paid my airfare. But they were happy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it was great. And I think it did a lot for morale, for
Hmm.
a lot of people, just to see you there and hear what you had to say. And, it was wonderful. So if anybody has missed that video or any of that, content,
Hmm.
please check it out. So
Well, he got a taste of American politics.
I did. I wore a red tie because I knew that if I wore a blue one, I'd get in trouble in Texas. So I was like, if it's red, it's Republican, and that's fine. That'll be okay.
you have to be careful. You absolutely have to be
Yeah.
careful. And I loved your drone footage that you did of
Hmm.
the site there. I thought that was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I
Yeah, you
lugged
did a
my
lot of
drone
stuff.
all the way from the UK to Fairview, and flew it around, got everything I can. I've got more. So if you guys ever need any B-roll, just hit me up.
Yeah.
And there
I've
it
got
is.
footage. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't just addressing the council. Nemo has a lot of excellent footage about, just everything going on there and the people in the site and, kind of man on the ground there. So yeah, it was excellent.
And
So
the question is, will I go back in August?
that
Who
is the
knows?
question. Will you go back in August? The question is, will we be going back in August?
Oh,
We will see, huh?
live
August
podcast
is
on the ground.
August is a long way away, and there's a
It
lot
is.
going on. There's a
Hmm.
lot simmering. I'll say that,
Yes.
right? It's simmering under the surface. There may
Hmm.
not be a lot of announcements or things like that, but those of us that are kind of in the know, we understand there's a lot simmering. So, and that is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. It's actually a very, very important issue, sort of an unexpected issue. Let's bring up our first slide. And it's important because the two of us who have Landon and I have covered temples, Nemo's covered temples, the three of us together, we felt it really important to cover this issue. Um, this says we got to have more bell tower. Now, for those of you that are too young, this is a picture from Saturday Night Live. It's one of the most famous skits ever. Christopher Walken plays a record producer who's auditioning a new band, and Will Ferrell is hitting that cowbell. He is playing that cowbell. The other members of the band, it's Don't Fear the Reaper, they're playing and they're just like, oh my gosh. They call in the record producer to get him to kind of stop Will Ferrell. And Christopher Walken keeps going, oh no, I got to say this. We got to have more cowbell, right? I've got a fever and the only prescription is more cowbell. So more cowbell has kind of, entered the cultural lexicon as just something, an absurdity. So we thought we got to have more bell tower because that's what we're talking about today. We are talking about the notorious United Methodist. Is that right, Landon? United Methodist
Yep.
Church bell
Hmm.
tower, which is a sticking point because the residents, the Fairview United residents, understand what's happening with the bell tower in one way, and the LDS members understand it in another way. And so we're going to clarify this so that everybody can understand, because I do see both sides of it. It's a confusing issue, but not really, as we're going to work through it.
Hmm.
So, of course, we're talking about the McKinney Texas Temple, 43,000 square feet, 173-foot tall spire, announced on the 2nd of October, 2022. And again,
Yeah.
Nemo and Mormonish, we have so much content on both our channels about this if you want to catch up. But if we go to our next slide, we'll just tell you kind of where we sit now. So this meeting that we talked about that Nemo attended on June 4th, At that point, there was a continuance granted. So nothing's going to happen until August 6th. And this gives the LDS Church time to return with plans that meet the town's zoning codes and ordinances. Or, as we have heard through the grapevine, what's the next phrase there, Nemo?
What? Or hire a real estate law firm.
Yes, which is what we've heard they've done. Have you heard that,
Yeah.
Nemo?
I've heard that they've gone to quite an aggressive real estate law firm.
Yes.
We ought to take a vote as to which one we think they're going to come back with, the
Exactly.
law firm or actual changes.
Yeah.
Law
No, I
firm.
think we've heard, hello.
Even though they were warned at the meeting that if nothing changes, it will be denied. So
Exactly.
I think the only reason they would hire a law firm is if they know they're not going to be able to change it sufficiently to actually meet code.
Yep.
So they're just prepping for it not to not pass, and
Yep.
they're getting a head start on trying to sue the town, essentially.
Yep, exactly. A head start on trying to sue the town. I love that. And again, we saw this on Cody, Wyoming. In Cody, Wyoming, there are several different temples in different stages of this process with the church. So yes, we have heard that they've hired, as Nemo said, a very aggressive real estate law firm out of Dallas. So we'll hopefully find more about that. Other things that are happening right now, again, we're just updating you what's happened since that meeting on June 4th. The planning director has received a 6-inch stack of crayon drawings of the temple. And we did hear about this at the meeting on the 4th. A state primary president, I believe, level person got up and said that the primary children care a great deal about temple architecture and have been dry.
Yeah.
But you heard that firsthand, didn't you, Nemo?
Yeah, can I speak to this? Is this one of the pictures that was received? Is this a legitimate?
No, this is just something that I assumed would be similar looking like that. When a 3-year-old cares about architecture, they can't say the word architecture, but this is what they draw.
Because I thought it would be interesting if the church is getting all litigious and then they send a bunch of these with the words under the bottom, it is protected material, do not distribute. Thought that would be amusing. But no, what was said at the meeting was that our children know what a temple looks like. They've drawn all these pictures and look, they have steeples. It's like, most small children will draw a house with a pitched roof. It doesn't mean that's the only way a house can be built, does it?
No.
It was such a ridiculous argument. Was that, well, the kids know that temples have steeples, so therefore we should have a steeple. It's like, nah, stop trying to use
No, and
kids.
the reason they know they have steeples, because I've been in primary forever. That was the only place where I finally felt, okay, I think I can be here, for decades, is that they're often given, pre-drawn pictures to color of temples, and they all have steeples. The church's curriculum and materials put a steeple on the temple for the kids to fill in and draw. So when they're asked to draw their own, of course, they're going to draw something that looks like what they were just handed on a coloring page probably the week before. So, but the interesting thing that our source said, and I'm glad, the staff of the town of Fairview recognizes that children are being used to garner the sympathy vote. So they understand it exactly as it is. So.
We've talked about the members being used in this whole process, and this is a perfect example where the children are, really, you think you ask a 3-year-old in primary, what's your favorite architectural component of the temple? And they're going to say, well, I like Romanesque type architecture.
That's right. Victorian really does it for me.
But really, temple architecture with the steeple pointing to God is my favorite architectural element. You're not going to get that answer from a 3-year-old.
They just write neo-Gothic down.
Neo-Gothic.
That's what I want.
Yeah,
we could call it Nemo Gothic.
Nemo Gothic. That's my new favorite kind.
But then, isn't it interesting looking at this picture again? If they want to try and make the argument that what the children draw can then be used as a basis to argue for religious necessity, well, then they really have to start making very small temples, because a child's sense of scale indicates that temple's pretty small, maybe 2 people tall, 3 at a push.
Yep.
So maybe 3 lots of 6-foot people, 18 feet. Yeah.
You're right.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
no more than
scale.
18-foot temples. That's the rules now.
That's true. And we made the comment, when a child, it doesn't take much to draw a child's eyes upward to heaven. Maybe somebody who's 6 feet tall, and it does not take much. So anyway, yes, we always talk about how we feel maybe the LDS members are being a little bit manipulated and used in this process, told to promote the steeple height and the mass of the walls and all that. But now children too, and we do understand that this was all happening during church. like second hour in classes and Sunday schools and primaries where they're
while
using
the adults
that
were
time.
writing their emails, the kids were drawing pictures.
That's exactly right. And very interesting to think about that you go to worship and then half of your time there is spent, in political activism of a sort. So it is kind of interesting. Okay, so what else is happening since that meeting? Okay, do you want to read that, Nemo? Because I think you know about this too.
So city leadership continues to be bombarded with thousands of emails from church members, slowing down the city's ability to get real work done and causing great frustration with the staff. Yeah, Israel Roberts at the planning meeting or the town council meeting didn't look too happy when he reported that 13,500 emails had gone his way. And those are just the ones he'd been able to process. And the thing that was mentioned at that planning meeting, which I think is good for this point, is they mentioned that they have some of the lowest tax rates around, and that a lot of people put a lot of their personal time into working for the town. There was a lot of almost sort of volunteer type effort. I don't think they used those words exactly, but they made it clear that people were doing a lot more than is usually asked of them to put together a meeting that could accommodate the amount of people the church was trying to bring, that could, deal with all these sorts of things. And Israel Roberts did not look happy that he'd been sent 13,500 emails. And a part of me wonders whether it's fair game to ask people to send 15,000 emails to Russell M. Nelson's personal email address and ask him to do something about the temple, because the church seems to think that's an acceptable tactic.
Yeah. And what they don't realize is that when you send an email to a city, there's a protocol and a procedure. Each email has to be logged in a certain way. It has to be processed individually because it has to go in the record, right? There are very strict protocols when people contact cities. So Israel just isn't scrolling through going, oh my gosh, he's having to open each one, process it, probably put it on a form, who sent it, what day they sent. I mean, I'm guessing they're going to have to get more staff to handle this. This picture, I don't think is an exaggeration. This is just egregious. Honestly, what do you think, Landon?
Well, this is just one of the blessings of having a temple come to your city. And I think...
Well, and you probably too, Nemo, we have continued to receive emails from people in the area and surrounding areas where that call is still going out to send emails. Even though there was that push right before the meeting, that call, and I should say beyond surrounding areas, we've heard of people in other states still getting it. A temple needs help. I'm here, let's send an email. So they're still getting the emails. It's not stopping. It's not slowing down.
And I think you'll see it again before the next meeting.
Oh,
they'll probably try again.
Yep. So the town basically, I would say, kind of gridlock, honestly, because like you say, Nemo, a lot of these people are just volunteering a lot of their own personal time to do this. And, it's a small town.
Yeah. 10,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. So what else has happened since then? Oh, okay. We've also been told, Landon, you want to read this one?
Yeah, members are being told each Sunday to keep praying that the city leaders' hearts will be softened. Evidently, doing your job is means you're hard-hearted because you're following through, looking at the codes, deciding whether it meets it, and having to make a vote. But you're clearly on Satan's side if you're going to vote against the temple. Therefore, your heart needs to be softened.
They're hard-hearted because they're not giving in to the emotional manipulation of the children's drawings and the crying of members saying, "Oh, I was hanging onto a cliff all night, and isn't it great to have a temple?" And that's not washing. That's not working. And they're like, "Oh, well, these people must be terribly hard-hearted."
Right.
No, they've just not been conditioned to respond to testimony the way that regular members of the church have been conditioned to respond to it.
That's right. In fact, that's one of my favorite parts about watching all these different city council meetings and planning meetings when the LDS get up and they do bear testimony and tell these stories. Great. Those are great. Those are your experiences. But, then the planning and zoning or the council will say, thank you, but that is not relevant here. Can you please talk to the zoning or the codes or the regulation, And I think LDS members are not used to having their personal feelings discounted. I mean, they're important to the person. That's fine. But it doesn't have a place in these legal processes.
And that speaks to a deeper sort of psychological thing within the church that you've been taught your entire life, that the basis of fact and the way the world is and your entire worldview is your feelings. So surely then they have some weight to be persuasive because they've persuaded you to act a certain way your entire life. And it can be quite disconcerting, like you said, for members to have their feelings not have weight and have, impact. And it was one of the very frustrating things in the meeting when we were all sat there, was that the local residents had prepared really useful, important documents and weren't able to fully share them because we've got this time limit, which is fine. But when you hear other people kind of sharing stuff that's not relevant, you think, well, some of that time could have been used for us to actually make important points. And it's not to say their points weren't important. Like, their opinions are important to an extent, but you would expect at this sort of meeting people to bring facts about the issue at hand, not just their desire for something to happen, because they've expressed their desire in lots of other ways.
Right. Correct.
They don't need to do it in the meeting as well, right?
Yep. And we've seen this again in all the other cities. I remember the first time we really heard it. Remember, this Landon was in Heber Valley, where our residents, armed with facts, armed with stats, done the research, went in there. And after the meeting, they said, we didn't understand it. The LDS didn't seem to have any knowledge of any of the codes or the zoning or the traffic or the lighting or the FAA. They were just crying a lot, is what they said. I said, yep, it's feelings. And they're the real feelings to them. And they do feel them very deeply. But again, this might not be the place. So yes, they're continued to be told every Sunday, remind them that we need to keep praying. We've heard things like, the work of the adversary, is working hard on this, and it's an interesting point of view, just that the idea that, these political legal processes that are impeding the temple might be Satan. It's not the case at all.
And good God-fearing Christians of rural Texas don't like being told that they're doing the devil's work, right? They do not like that.
Yeah. No, it's pretty shocking to be called the, minions of the adversary or some of those words. So anyway, still going on, like we said, simmering under the scene until the August meetings. So Nemo and Mormonish receive a lot of emails from a lot of people about our podcasts, saying that we are getting it all wrong. We are misunderstanding. We need to do our homework. We need to stop being lazy learners, that we do not understand the situation. So we'll go into that later. But we would like to clear up some misinformation here on this podcast a little bit, including the bell tower. So here's an example of one of the emails, a portion of it that we received on Mormonish. And I'm guessing Nemo receives the same kind of thing. Exactly, maybe different words. But this person said to us in a really long email, based on the mayor, town council, planning and zoning committee's handling of the issues, I wouldn't trust their opinions, My understanding is they refuse to even meet with the church until the day of the last town council meeting. Don't quote me on this. I just heard it through the grapevine.
I think you just quoted him on it.
Yeah. And before we go any further, he didn't hear that on the grapevine. That was said in a letter sent out from church leaders that the church had refused to meet with people. So let's not go, oh, no, I just heard it through the grapevine. No, you heard it from your church leaders. They are spreading that information.
Yeah, and we're going to cover that letter next.
Sorry,
absolutely.
Carry on.
No, you're exactly right though. The Mormon grapevine is notorious, and it usually starts with your leader sending you a letter. And he goes on to say, why is that? Then they tried to vote on it at a time when 2 town council members are out of town. So it'd be impossible to approve it even if they wanted to. The dirty tricks being played here are not coming from the church. Okay. So I have to say, here's a member of the church in the area, and this is what he believes. This is why he's so upset. He honestly believes there are dirty tricks being played by the church. And a lot of that misinformation, as Nemo pointed out, is coming from actual letters from the leadership, so they're not getting 2 sides of it. So they really don't understand. So
he believes there's dirty tricks being played by the city, not the church. You
I'm sorry. Did I say the church? Sorry. Yeah. The people in the church believe the dirty tricks are being played by the city. Yes. And this information is coming from church leadership in a lot of cases. And we'll give you an example with this letter. Now, I know that Nemo did a really awesome little short on this letter. And I have a little bit of additional information to add here from a source in the city. So I think we will let's have, why don't you read the first? This is a letter that was sent from the McKinney State Presidency in black. And then in blue, our source in the city is addressing some of the misinformation. And again, Nemo did cover most of this on a short too, so he's pretty familiar.
Who do you want to read that?
You can read that. Yeah, you can read the first. There's
you keep saying you. Pieces. Which one of us?
Oh, you. Sorry, Nemo. I said,
okay. Thanks.
I know. Just you. Yeah.
You. Okay. Dear brothers and sisters, we wanted to provide an update on the progress of the McKinney Texas Temple. Last week, on June the 4th, temple project leaders and attorneys met with Fairview town officials to discuss the temple. Despite repeated requests from the church, this was the first time city leaders were willing to sit down with church representatives to discuss the application. Very important word, willing there, they're making an assumption.
Yes.
We hope this marks the beginning of many conversations with the town, leading to a mutual agreement relating to the temple application.
Right. And in blue is what our source said. Do you want to read that, Nemo? Because I'm sure you've heard similar things.
Yeah. According to our source, Mayor Lessner reached out to the LDS Church several times without success. It wasn't until May the 23rd, 2024, that Fairview Town Attorney Clark McCoy informed the Town Council that LDS officials wanted to meet on the afternoon of June the 4th, 2024.
So had you kind of heard that too?
Yeah. No, I'd heard that. And there's this idea, they put in this letter that that city leaders weren't willing to sit down with the church representatives. And it is strange that they keep calling them city leaders when it's a town, but I don't know if that's an Americanism or what to refer to towns and cities and vice versa. But yeah, they're saying that they weren't willing to sit down. Do they have any proof that it was a lack of willing? That it wasn't just they were busy or they were unavailable, it wasn't appropriate? Any number of other reasons why they didn't meet with the church leaders? But no, they've just jumped to, well, the town leaders weren't willing to meet with us. Okay, prove that part of it, please, because according to what I've heard and according to other sources, Mayor Lessner reached out to the church and asked. So it could be that he's reaching out to the church through their attorneys, and the attorneys are going, no. Mm-hmm. Church leaders are telling their attorneys, no, we want to meet, and the attorneys, as these middlemen, are just letting church leaders think that the town council is unwilling, whereas as part of the legal strategy, the attorneys just aren't meeting because they want to crank up some pressure or do whatever attorneys do when they're being paid too much.
Well, I think we need to look at, too, who is the church? I mean, maybe they wrote a letter to Russell M. Nelson. Would that letter ever be returned? I mean, who is the person that you're reaching out to as the church? Are you reaching out to the stake president? Are you reaching out to their attorney? Are you supposed to reach out to the PR person? Are you supposed to reach out to the area rep? Who are they supposed to be reaching out to? The town doesn't even know who's in charge. There are no decision makers in town or anywhere near. Well, no one knows who the decision makers are. They keep saying that's above my pay grade.
Exactly. They kept saying that on June the 4th. They kept going, oh, well, we can't make any decisions. They reported that in that meeting, all they did was sit there and go, well, we can't make any promises. Essentially, all they had the power to say was, we'll go back and ask. So for all their declarations that this is important and that's important, and they're trying to, establish doctrine by making the steeple all of a sudden really important, they're actually just quite powerless individuals who have to just go back and kiss the ring of Russell M. Nelson and ask him what he wants to do.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time on Mormonish. We're like, how insulting, right? How insulting to send no one that can make any kind of definitive decision to a meeting about a building of this scope. And Landon, I always ask you, Landon, when you go to meetings, they're pretty high powered internationally. What happens if there are no decision makers? There's no meeting. It's
no
ridiculous.
Decision happens, so there's no reason to have a meeting. I mean,
they don't just send a chocolate teapot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ooh, that sounds yummy. A chocolate teapot.
It's useless. Carry on, Landon. Sorry.
You may have a discussion and you may work out details prior to having the decision makers come in. But in this case, you're about to have the town meeting where they vote on the decision. This is where your decision maker should be on the ground, ready to pivot or ready to make concessions or willing to say, we're not going to do this. Yeah. And one other point is, my understanding is that, one, this is a small town. These are volunteer. They might get paid, I don't know, but they're part-time. They have other jobs. Their number one priority is not to get the LDS temple pushed through. They're there. They have meetings. They're scheduled. The church could have gone to any of these meetings months in advance, and we're going to show how you can do that and work with the town council. The expectation that they're just supposed to take time off their own jobs and come meet with the church whenever the church's lawyers are in town is ridiculous. And my understanding is that town councils, city councils are not allowed to meet with somebody without it being an actual town council meeting where other people are invited and it's on the agenda. So you don't just get to say, oh, we want to have a meeting and everybody show up at this time. It has to be
strict
planned.
Protocols.
It has to have an agenda. There is a protocol to be followed.
And the town will have likely thought that these men flying in from Salt Lake, coming from the church's law firm, would be in a position to speak for the church.
Yes.
They would
Yep.
perhaps assume that's why they've been flown all the way from
Yep.
Salt Lake down to Texas, right? Why would the church fly in a couple of, I'm going to say again, chocolate teapots, useless individuals who aren't able to actually make any decisions? They can't actually do anything meaningful other than try and put the church's side across. And if they're rebutted, go, well, that's above our pay grade to maneuver in any way.
Yeah. Well,
It's pointless.
it is pointless. No, and all the different towns that we are covering and work with have arrived at the same conclusion. Who are these people? They can't make a decision. All they can do is take word back. They can't say anything. Why are they even here?
Very well-paid messengers.
Yes, they're powerful. Their lack of power is becoming more and more obvious when the residents ask direct questions, as they should. What will you do about this? Can you change the name? What about this? Oh, my pay grade. I can't even tell you how many meetings we've watched, even meetings of temples in the past, because we're starting to dig into this too. We've watched city council, video above my pay grade. And what I want to know, what do you think, Nemo? Who is the ultimate decision maker? I mean, would it be the temple building committee? Would it be someone in the Q15 who could actually say, we'll change it to McKinney, we'll put it over here? I mean, who is the decision maker?
It's Russell M. Nelson. When it comes to temples, it will be him, because he's the guy that runs around saying, right, we're going to have a temple here. And then everyone else's job is to make it happen. So you don't have that kind of power and sway over the temple building mission of the church without then all those decisions having to come back to you, right? This is clearly his thing.
Guess.
I would imagine.
I had a resident say, I want to write a letter to the prophet. Just let him know what's happening and what harm. And I just went, oh, you poor dear. Not even members can contact anybody. You can't. It's a big circular loop. You can't contact anyone. So anyway, all right. So that's the first piece of misinformation in this letter from the church. And this is why residents are sending us emails saying, you got it all wrong. Landon, you can take this one. This is another piece of misinformation that was in that letter that went out from the state presidency to thousands of people.
Okay. At the request of the mayor, in exchange for a continuance, we did not present the application, and we asked many members to save their comments with the understanding that the meeting would be continued and both the church and its members would have the opportunity to discuss more fully with the town at a later date. We are grateful for those who made bold and powerful statements on our behalf that night. Okay, the response to that, according to our source, the LDS Church requested a continuance and inquired if the public hearing could be called off before the town council meeting. They were informed that only the council could decide to continue the public meeting as planned. During the meeting, the mayor asked the council if they wanted to proceed with the continuance. At no point did the town prevent LDS officials from presenting their application. Nemo, you were at the meeting.
Well, in fact, there was a moment where my jet-lagged brain almost crashed because I thought the meeting could then go on for another hour and a half. It had reached like 10 o'clock at night or so, and the church's lawyer got up and said, well, hang on, if you're going to vote, we should get a chance to present our application. We should get a chance to present it. We didn't because we thought we were going to get a continuance. That's the key there. Because they thought it was going to get continued, they chose not to present.
Yep.
Right? And then they were saying, well, no, hang on, we should get to present then if it's going to get denied. And there was a question there of whether, okay, do we let them present? Do we give them half an hour, let them present, and then we carry on the public hearing? And there were some residents who wanted to do that. But I think ultimately the feeling in the room was people were tired. People had been there a long time. They just wanted to go. So they thought, I think that was the thing that ultimately drove the continuance, was this idea that, oh no, are they going to now filibuster for half an hour about, and some of the other comments were, well, I think one of the town council members even said, well, I'd like to hear something new. Because we've all heard what the plans are. We all know what the church's plan is. So it would be pointless to hear it again. It might fulfill protocol, but it would be kind of redundant to hear it again because nothing's changed.
Yep.
And I think that's why the continuance went ahead.
Yeah, I think so too. And I know that they met earlier in the day, all proper protocols, and that was kind of worked out that there would be a continuance. And at that point, there was an email sent out, multiple emails, because they had requested that people come from all over and inundate the meeting. Already 2,500 people did show up, but they sent out an email, and by they, I mean the church, different stakes and different leaders that said, stand down. They actually used the word stand down. No need to go tonight. No need to be there in your white shirt. How many would come? 10,000? I don't know. No need to go because it looks like we're going to get a continuance. So 2,500 people did show up. The meeting's happening. And then I think they started to get nervous because it sounded like maybe there would be a vote instead of continuance, like you're saying. And then they said, well, wait, we want to present, but in no way were they ever told you can't present, you can't be heard. It was just all part of the political process that everybody had worked out already. So I think this is misinformation. And again, the LDS people, now they've heard, we couldn't give our statement. They're just hearing all this information that makes it look like they're really being persecuted. And who's sending out this misinformation? Unfortunately, they're stake leaders. Yeah. So I understand why they're upset.
I reckon it's because I was there. I reckon the lawyers spotted me. They shook my hand. They noticed me. They're like, "Oh, hi, Nemo. Have you really flown all the way out for this?" I was like, "Yeah." What's this? Yeah. And they did seem quite panicked by my presence, so that was quite entertaining.
Wow, how does that feel to have people panic when you walk in a room?
It's the funniest thing watching men that normally walk around like they're 10 foot tall become a little bit shorter for little old me. Yeah, it's quite funny.
Well, the power of Nemo.
I want to point out too that again, this is a process that has to follow protocols.
Yes.
And in order for this meeting to happen, it has to be put on the agenda. I think it's 48 hours before the city or the town council meets. And in this case, it was on the agenda. The church knew this was being discussed this night. They knew what was happening. They'd asked all their members to come out. The city, knowing that they were asking to bring out a lot more people, spent money to rent another facility, a larger facility than the town hall, so they could accommodate all the people who were going to be coming. And then the church shows up 2 hours before and says, we want a continuance. And the mayor can't just say, oh, well, okay, let's knock that off. It's already on the agenda. Yep. Nemo has flown in from the UK to make a presentation.
4,500 miles.
Yeah, other people have presentations ready. Why? Because it was on the meeting agenda.
On the agenda.
Per the request of the church. The church is the one putting this application forward. The mayor can't just say, oh, we're not going to have the city. We're going to have... There's a process. Someone has to say, we want a continuance. Someone has to second it. It has to be voted on. And that's exactly what happened in the meeting. There was the process, went through it, and they said, we got to have a discussion whether we're going to allow a continuance or not, and then we have to vote on it. And then the church panicked because if they voted no, then the church was going to have to, all of a sudden, they told all their people not to come. Well, it was on the agenda. The church knew it was on the agenda. The church asked for a continuance. They expected a continuance. The town said, look, we talked about a continuance. We'll go ahead and give you the continuance. But they did have to go through the process and the procedures. And there's nothing underhanded about that. And the comment about 2 people missing and all of that, this meeting was scheduled months before, at least a month before it ever happened. And so there was this is the procedures that must be followed by the
Mayor Lesnar said they had long-standing holidays already planned.
Yep.
Right. People need to go on holiday at some point. These are volunteers. I'm 90% sure. If I'm wrong, someone tell me in the comments, but I'm 90% sure it's my understanding that they are volunteers. They're not paid.
Yeah, wow. Sometimes I know some cities will pay, just for the time that they're there, they get paid a certain stipend. Usually smaller towns, they don't get paid. So just depends on the town. But if they are paid, it's a very small amount. It's just
it's not a full-time career. So I have to say, it just reminds me that one of the most effective ways to rally people is to give them a common enemy, right? And letters like this with rhetoric like this gives the city is your enemy. The city is doing this to you, kind of a thing. And if anybody wants to watch the whole meeting, this entire town council meeting, Landon and I rewatched it, made comments throughout. It's on Mormonish on our YouTube channel if you have 3.5 extra hours. It also includes Nemo's address. There was some of it also on Mormon Stories, and Nemo has showed clips. So it is really fascinating to see the process of a town when it butts up against religion and feelings and emotion. It's pretty fascinating.
And I do want to point out one more thing, that the world does not revolve around the LDS temple. and the LDS people's feelings.
For some.
So if two people are gone from the town council, you don't cancel the town council meeting, because the work of the town still has to go on. Just like your job doesn't shut down when you're not there. When you go on vacation, they continue working. The city council continues to meet the first Tuesday of every month. And if some of the council members aren't there, they continue and they vote with who's there. That there's nothing underhanded, nothing undermined about that. There were other things on the agenda than just the LDS church, and those things got taken care of by the council members that were there.
It's crazy that the religion that produced Stephen Covey, who wrote How to Win Friends, no, he's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. No, I won't make that joke. But yes, they're not very good at winning friends and influencing people, are they?
No, not when they have an agenda to follow through on. Okay. And this seems to be, this is the weirdest one. And I think we're all still looking into this because it's pretty unusual. And Nemo did do a short on this that you guys can all check out, but I'm going to show you some of the letters and things I found that were also on Nemo's short. So it also says in the letter here from the McKinney State Presidency, opponents seem to have a large number of misunderstandings. So each side is saying, you misunderstand us. No, you misunderstand us about the application, which we are in the process of addressing. The location of the McKinney Temple has never changed. The property on Stacy Road in Fairview was the one site where land was acquired, that's in red, that'll be important, to build this temple. It has a McKinney zip code and is zoned for McKinney Independent School District, which is why, because that's a question. McKinney and Fairview have a sort of a dicey relationship, and people in Fairview are saying, why, insult to injury, are you calling it McKinney? So they're explaining it's because of the zip code, and it is standard LDS practice to build a temple and for example, the Tacoma, Washington temple is going to be in Federal Way, right? I made a prophecy.
London temple is 40 miles outside of London.
Yeah, exactly. So this does happen, and I can understand why the residents would go, wait, that's insulting. But yeah, this idea that it has always been in Fairview is not accurate, and we've all tried to show this.
Technically correct, right?
It is
I've talked about that.
Technically correct with the word acquired, but I'll just show you a few slides so we can understand and be up to speed on this, and then we'll move to the bell tower. So our source said, President Nelson initially announced the Prosper Temple in October 2022. Prosper is a town about half an hour away. Is that what you understand? I think it's about half an hour away.
Yep.
According to Collin County deed records, the LDS Church purchased 8.4 acres of land for the GNC Stacy at Meandering LLC on March 29th, 2023. Through a land swap with the Twin Creeks Church of Christ, the LDS Church acquired its current property, where the temple is going to be now in Fairview, on June 9th, 2023, as documented in Collin County records. On December 4th, 2023, the LDS Church announced a name and location change to the present site. LDS is playing semantics here with the word acquired. And I know that Nemo talked about this. Also, they reference McKinney because of the zip code and school district contributing to the confusion, and no reference to Prosper. So for some reason, the LDS Church doesn't want any of its members to remember that there is a Prosper element to this. So let's go through the slides really quick, and then we'll have Nemo weigh in because he did do that short. So, okay, this is the end of the letter. And they both basically just kind of go through and talk about the height limits, and we hope our discussions will continue. Thankful to the saints that showed up. We love you, McKinney. Okay, so back to the Prosper issue. Next slide. Let's see. Okay, so as Nemo pointed out in his short, and we've all pointed out, 2nd October 2022, Salt Lake City, October General Conference. This is from the church website itself. The Church of Jesus Christ will build 18 new houses of the Lord. Again, we refer to temples as houses of the Lord, not temples. The prophet said God is increasing our ability to help gather Israel. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints will build 18 new houses of the Lord in the coming months and years. President and Prophet Russell M. Nelson made this announcement Sunday in the final session of October 2022 General Conference. And here's the list of the temples that he listed out. On the next slide, a whole bunch. Busan, Korea, in Guatemala, Grand Rapids, Jacksonville, Florida, in big red letters. What does it say, everybody?
Prosper, Texas.
Prosper, Texas Temple. There it is. And also,
right next to Lone Mountain.
I just noticed that. That was the same time. So they're on the same trajectory. Lone Mountain, Nevada, and Prosper Temple. All the residents are doing the very same thing. What's happening? Look at our town council meetings. Everything is happening. So it was announced. This is from the church website. It was announced in Prosper, Texas. Okay. So is there one before that? I think there's one before that, Landon. Yes. Okay. So this is from a website, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints of North Texas. It's a Facebook page. So I pulled this up, and they have a post there back from October of 2023 calling it the Prosper Temple and giving an announcement. The Prosper Temple was announced on October 2nd, 2022, currently in design phase, no official rendering. So on the website, on the Facebook page of North Texas, talking about all things LDS, they definitely believed it was going to be in Prosper, at least as far as October 13th, 2023. Okay, so then all of a sudden we see on the church's website again, Prosper Texas Temple gets a name change and site location December 5th of 2023, but it doesn't. Here's maybe where you can talk about the semantics, Nemo, because it just says name change, site location, not site change. Doesn't admit to that.
If you read further on, I don't know if you have the rest of it.
I don't have the rest of that. No.
Hang on. Let me grab that real quick, because that's where the real semantic game is played.
Yeah.
Church technicalities. Let me grab that real quick.
And I just wonder if they're trying to say it was always going to be called the Prosper Temple, but built in Fairview. I mean, is that what they're alluding to? They don't come out and say that, but they certainly don't admit there was ever another site. But we're going to show you some other documentation.
The fact that they call it McKinney because of the area code in the school district, then why didn't you announce it as McKinney if that's where it was always intended?
It's not in the Prosper zip code.
Well, it's not in Prosper. It's not in Prosper School District. It's 30 minutes away. So for those who are familiar with Utah, that's like saying that you're announcing the Salt Lake Temple and building it in Provo.
Yeah.
And then saying, oh, no, it was always intended to be built in Provo. Well, you can definitely understand why the people in Salt Lake would be disappointed when they find out that the temple you announced in Salt Lake is being built in Provo.
Yeah. Did you find
so ABC4 Utah reports it as the church announced that the location where the temple would be built had been changed. KUTV also announced that there was a change of location. And then I've just found out, if you go on the church news, that thing you've got on the slide, it says... Right. There you go. The First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has released both a name change and location for an announced temple in the North Dallas area of the state of Texas. Just depends how you read the sentence. Have they announced a location? Yes, they have. They've released a location for the announced temple. A name change and location. It's tricky.
Yep.
They've put commas in KUTV as well, where they're like, oh, yes. Site, location change. It's like, or name, comma, location change. Is that a list? Is that both those things have changed? But if you're about to go to the Prosper Stake President's email, then we'll see that certainly local church leaders in Prosper were expecting a temple to turn up.
And that's exactly it. Go back one more, Landon, to the little thing from social media.
Okay.
One more. Yep.
I'm sorry about that.
There you go. Yeah. And that's exactly it. The issue is, for some reason, they're trying to not let on that it actually really was intended for Prosper. It really was. So I was Googling around. I found this post from a long time ago, like a year and a half ago, where somebody said people in Prosper are upset. The new temple is farther away than the Dallas temple for some of them on the west side. The stake president had to send out an email calming people down and telling them not to murmur, LOL. So immediately I went, what? There's an email? So I messaged this person just randomly, just by their username. I said, you wouldn't happen to have that email, would you? Next screen. Yes, they did. So this is what's important. We don't need to read the whole thing, but the first part, Nemo, do you want to read maybe just down to some of the key phrases in that first?
It's the first two paragraphs, really.
Yeah, the first two.
Dear members of the Prosper Stake, it is normal to feel disappointment, frustration, and grief when we experience loss. We acknowledge that we are all experiencing these kind of emotions following the announcement that the new temple will not be in Prosper as we have anticipated, planned for, and celebrated.
Okay.
While we don't know why the location of the temple has changed, we are grateful for the town of Prosper and Mayor David Bristol, who has been enthusiastic in his support for building a temple in Prosper. So why were they having chats with Mayor David Bristol and the town of Prosper at large about building a temple there if it wasn't going to be there?
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's exactly it. And if you go to the next slide, if you go to the next slide, the question is, while we don't know why the location of the temple has changed, okay, it's changed. Well, we think that we know why from our sources. And we were told that the church was interested in Prosper. As we saw from all those emails, the church was going to build in Prosper. It was announced as Prosper. And so, of course, they went to the town and they said, we were going to build here. And the town said, that's awesome. Here is our packet of ordinances, regulations, and the things that you will have to do, to be able to build in our town. They did not have any, what would you call it? Wiggly precedences, anything like that. It was pretty locked down tight in Prosper. And our sources have told us the church looked at that, realized that would be an uphill battle and fight. We need to find someplace else where there's a little more wiggle room. What have you heard, Nemo?
So this assumes then that the way the church is approaching this is they have a design already in mind that they're then looking at these ordinances going, will those fit what we want to put there? Which is the opposite of what we were always told happens with temples, which is that they are sympathetic to local architecture. In places outside of America, they still are. I was watching a video earlier today about the Bangkok temple, and there are lots of architectural and design elements that are reflective of Thai architecture. So the church can still do it, but they want to build these temples everywhere now in the States because they can get them built in Arkansas. They can turn them up modularly and then just assemble them. And they've got a few set designs that works for. And so they're going, right, which one of those designs can we use? Okay, we want to use this design for temple number, whatever. Now let's find a town that we can either shoehorn it into or that will accept it as is.
Yep, 100%. And we just did an episode last week on the Hinckley era of temples where it did seem to be more like what you described, where they did try to maybe take pride in being part of the neighborhood and working. But as we heard here in Prosper, they're pretty locked down as far as their ordinances. They're pretty set in stone, and that's not going to work.
But then, so where else things are pretty locked down? Brussels in Belgium.
Exactly.
But what had the church just done? They've gone, right, well, we'll just convert a pre-existing building then. Like they did in New York.
Yep. I would say what you describe in the UK, because we've had this conversation. I'm like, oh, we're so jealous of the way that, you have it locked down. That's exactly what they're doing. So it almost seems predatory to go, okay, we can't get in here because they're locked down. Where's like a shark? Dun-dun-dun-dun. Where's a town where
it's like, where's the limp gazelle that we can just take off right out of the herd?
And this leads into our topic today. These precedences and these wiggly ordinances that the church feels that they can, push themselves into. So let's go to our next slide and then we'll get to our actual topic. This has been
I want to go to one more
thing. Please do, Landon. I hope everybody understands what we're saying. Yeah.
I'm going to go back a couple slides here.
Okay. And I will say this, if a town would like to protect themselves from having this kind of invasion, like what's happening in Fairview, lock down your ordinances, make it pretty clear. It does help.
I want to point out this sentence right here, because this is textbook church. Opponents seem to have a large number of misunderstandings. It's not the church members. The church members never misunderstood that this temple was going in Prosper. They always knew it was going to go in McKinney. Only the opponents have this misunderstanding, even though we just showed the announcements from Prosper, from the prophet. The
local
local leadership said it's going in Prosper. The church news has to put out a thing saying it's moving. They send out a letter saying it's moving, but it's the opponents who have the misunderstanding that it was going to be built in Prosper.
Even though the members of Prosper Stake are upset and are having to be mollified by their stake president.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but they never misunderstood what.
Yeah, they always knew what was going on, because they have to reassure that the leadership is in tune with the Lord and knows exactly what was happening, and they have to put that there. So,
and it's a house of order. It's a house of order. That's always said about the church. These kinds of things don't happen, right? You don't try to go to one town, get shut down by the town, and then go somewhere else. So then our sources said, so here they are, they're ready with their temple. They have it all ready. They've got the design, McKinney Temple, Prosper Temple. Prosper is not going to work. It's going to be an uphill legal battle. There's no way. They're locked down tight. They look next door like a gazelle. I love that, Nemo. And they arrive at Fairview. This is kind of how we see it happening. And our sources tell us that they were told the inconsistencies of our ordinances is the reason they selected Fairview, residents were told by a church attorney. So inconsistencies of the ordinances. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Things that were allowed, not allowed, things that happened in the past, decades in the past. What are inconsistencies, and what does that have to do with the church's ability to build today? And how does this cause confusion between what members believe they know and residents that believe they know? And so we're going to talk about what are the inconsistencies, and we're going to let Landon really lead off here, because this is kind of his area of expertise. And we're going to get into the weeds of this, because it's all about a bell tower that a church was trying to build years ago in the early 2000s, that the church is kind of pinning all of their arguments on.
Yeah, and this is where we come to the bell tower argument, and I'm gonna pull up here, and this all comes down to an ordinance. So when the church realized we've got this 173-foot steeple that we've got to find a home for, they said, well, what other areas have passed high steeples like this? So they went to Fairview, or somebody told them in Fairview that there was an ordinance that was passed in Fairview in 2006 for the United Methodist Creekwood Church, in which they approved a bell tower. And the bell tower that they asked for was 150 feet tall. And we're going to show some pictures of that. But here you can see the ordinance. This is the ordinance that they went back to. And they're saying, look, this ordinance is signed by the mayor. It's approved. And it says that the bell tower and the conditional use permit was approved for the United Creekwood Methodist Church. But I want to show this last part, this Exhibit C, before we get into the others, because it can be, it's clear why there could be a misunderstanding, because the conditional use permit in which the Methodist Church asked for a 150-foot bell tower was approved. However, it was approved with conditions, and those conditions were labeled in this Exhibit C. And this is the Exhibit C that you see right here from what was passed. And you look at number 1 right there. It says the location and footprint of the bell tower is approved, with the height, noise, and sound system of the bell tower to be addressed at a later time in the development process before the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you look down at number 4, it says all conditions subject to administrative approval of the town's staff, except the height, noise, and sound system. So the local city workers can make decisions, but they can't make a decision on the height, noise, and sound system, because the ordinance says that has to go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission has to make those changes, and they have to determine the final height, the final loudness of the bell tower, and the other things. So it's approved. So the footprint of the bell tower is approved. The location for the bell tower is approved, but the height still has to be worked out, which means it has to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So they're saying you can have one. We just haven't decided how tall or loud it can be yet.
Correct.
Yeah? Okay.
Correct. And we'll go through the meeting minutes where they actually say we have no problem with the height. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission has to look at all these other things to determine whether the height really is appropriate. That's basically what they're saying. So you look at number 5, it says all conditions of approval must be stated as notes on the site development plan or as a separate sheet attachment. So right now, all the conditions are not known because they have not approved the height, the noise, and the sound system. So I wanted to just kind of show that before we get into the discussion.
And again, can I just mention the reason in layman's terms this is important is because the town of Fairview even entertained this ordinance, went through this process back there in 2006. The LDS Church says, because, you approved, which they really didn't, and we'll get into that you must grant us what we are requesting, which is similar. Otherwise, it's religious discrimination. It gets into RLUIPA. So that's what a precedence means. You did it before, you have to do it again.
I will come to it later.
But it's all weighing on, did you do it before? And they did not. So
I want to make this really clear up front. My position is, even if they did say you can have a 150-foot bell tower, the church is still asking for something 20 feet taller.
Yes.
So this still wouldn't be a precedent, because the church would be going, oh, well, you gave them 150 feet. Why can't we have 170? And all the town has to say is, because it's 20 feet taller.
Yep.
Yes, the church could then come back and say, right, we want something 150 feet. And the town council might have to go, well, yeah, sure, if this was granted. But it doesn't entitle them to 173 feet and 8-inch steeple, regardless.
That's an excellent point. And we have a graphic about that later. Yes. That even if what the LDS members believe to be true about this was true, which it is not, it still is not a precedence for what they're asking for.
Sorry, Landon.
So what we wanted to do is we wanted to show the history of this bell tower, where it came from and what process it went through, so that we understand what was done to get to this point. So the first time this ever comes up, and what we've done is we've pulled out just the sections from either the planning and zoning meeting minutes or the city or the town council meeting minutes. We've pulled those out, and that's what you're seeing here. So these are excerpts from the meeting minutes.
And you can look these up online. This is public information. Anyone can look at the entire meeting if they are concerned about our presentation of the scope.
18 years ago.
The first time this came up was 2006, January 12th. And I want to point this out. I'm going to read through this fairly fast, but I want to hit all the points of what they mentioned, because this is how planning and zoning works when you're a church that's concerned about the community and want to work with the community. So this is a discussion regarding a proposed Creekwood United Methodist Church development they're putting it on 28 acres. So the temple's on what, 8 acres? This is on 28 acres on the corner of Stacy Road and Country Club Drive. So it's fairly close to where the temple site is. It's on the same road. And so let's read through what it says. It says, Alan Afrussi introduced this item, stating that the representation of the Creekwood United Methodist Church wished to discuss with the commission proposed plans for the development of this church. He further explained that the property is zoned RE1, section of the Code of Ordinances states that the churches and schools can locate in any zone except a flood hazard zone upon an application for a conditional use permit. Mr. Afrussi recommends that the commission answer questions and provide feedback to the church representatives regarding this project. Mary Beth Hardesty Crouch, pastor of the Creekwood United Methodist Church, began the presentation by briefly explaining the origin of the church. She stated that the church began meeting in September 2001 in various homes in the area. The first worship service was held in February 2002 in Lovejoy Elementary School, and they continue to worship there. The church purchased 27 plus acres in 2001 and purchased the remaining 1.5 acres in 2004. The church's current membership is approximately 340 people. Mrs. Hardesty Crouch stated that they have surveyed their congregation, developed a strategic plan, and have concluded that they need to construct a building for worship. She noted that they have prepared preliminary design work, have held a capital campaign, and are now in the process of refining those plans. They are presenting this to the commission at this time to keep the commission informed of their planning process and to receive guidance and feedback on the project. So they're engaging the planning commission early on in the project, right from the start. This is January 2006. They don't go up to the planning board until August. So 8 months that they are working with the city to make sure that their church design is going to fit in, and asking for recommendations and suggestions of how they can do this. Steve Howard, who is on the Creekwood United Methodist Church Building Committee, continued the presentation by outlining the preliminary design submitted to the commission for this item. He commented on the different phases of the project, including potential uses for the building and their associated square footage, area, and location of the project, parking space, and sharing that space with the Lovejoy Elementary School and traffic issues. Mr. Howard stated that they are working toward keeping the natural beauty of the property and conserving the natural resources. They plan to give the project an upscale country feel with a campus-style design to work with the property of the land. Discussion followed between the commission and Mr. Howard regarding the phases of the project. a proposed bell tower, use of the building currently on the property, parking and traffic issues. Mr. Howard stated that their goal is to break ground mid-year 2006 and the project ending mid-year 2007. The commissioners commented on the creativity and attractiveness of the design. Chairman Wells recommended that the church representatives keep in contact with the town staff on procedures and regulations as the project progresses. So just as we discussed, they are going to the town. They're saying, what are the codes? What are the design parameters? What do we have to work within? What are we allowed to do? And they're designing based on feedback from the town. They're engaging with the town on how they get this through. Compare that to the church, who the first meeting they had, who shows up? Is it the pastor that's showing up and having a conversation and presenting it to the, is it the stake president? No, it's the lawyer shows up first and tells the town about their First Amendment rights and how they're going to shove it down their throat from the very first meeting. Look at this method here. There's no mention of Verloopy. There's no mention that we don't have to listen to any of your codes. There's no First Amendment rights. It's, we want to build a church and we want to try to do it in a way that benefits the town. How do we engage the town to help us bring this church in?
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, Nemo?
Well, I mean, they're coming from, they're a small congregation.
Yes.
They were meeting in a school. I think, I'm not sure how the Methodist Church works beyond local congregations, i.e. kind of what sort of institutional support they have or not. But they're very much coming from a position of, not a lot of strength, right? So they couldn't threaten to push this through even if they wanted to. Exactly. That would be my first thought. Whereas the church comes from a perceived position of strength. The church comes into every engagement knowing it has $150 billion or more in its back pocket and an army of lawyers that can get it whatever it wants. So the church only plays nice if they think it's in their interest, because they know they can ultimately shove things down people's throats if they want to. And I dislike that approach, but I feel like that's the difference, or the cause of the difference between the two sort of interactions there.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, let's move to the next thing that happened with this. So August, almost 8 months later, they show up at the Fairview Planning and Zoning Committee to take action on their conditional use permit. And they go through and they kind of talk about representatives of the church who showed up and what they're trying to do. But this highlighted area, I want to read that. Mr. Afrasi stated that the town staff has reviewed the site plan, and he noted the town staff's following findings. The cup generally meets the town's requirements, but there are several conditions that should be met in conjunction with the approval of this cup. And the staff does not believe there will be a negative impact from the bell tower shadow. Now that's important, because one of the things they're looking at is they're saying, okay, the bell tower's high, so what does its shadow look like to the neighbors? Is it casting shadows onto the neighboring lots? What's it doing? Remember, this is on 28 acres. So a cup is a conditional use permit. Each one has to be considered in its totality. What impact is it having on its neighbors? How are the neighbors perceiving the impact that they're going to have? Are they welcoming to it, or are they pushing back to it? That's why they have to put out flyers and invite people to comment on it, because it may impact the neighbors. And so this is the process that it's going through. So it says, Mr. Afrasi also noted the conditions for the cup approval as follows. 1, no adverse impact of the bell tower's noise. 2, the developer agrees to abide by all performance standard requirements. 3, height of the one-story multi-purpose building. In the RE1 zone, the maximum height of a building is 35 feet, and the height of this building is 38 feet, and the staff recommends approval of this 3-foot difference. So the cup is not just for the bell tower. They're building a church with a bell tower. So they're also asking for an exemption from the 35-foot high rule, and they're saying we want 38 feet. So they're asking for 3 feet variance. This is part of the cup. They can't build unless they get that approved. 4, height of the bell tower is 154 feet. The Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, may require conducting a height impact study relative to this height. And if this height is approved by the FAA, then the staff also recommend approval. 5, church access to Lovejoy School. Fire Chief Dick Price requires a driveway interconnect to the Lovejoy School parking lot, and the church's representative has asked the Lovejoy representatives for a letter in support of Chief Price's request. 6, review of the City of Allen's water service to this property will be provided by the City of Allen, and a condition of approval should be final approval of water utilities and fire hydrant locations by the City of Allen. 7, dedication of right-of-way. This has already been addressed and agreed to by the applicant. 8, developers agreement requested by the applicant regarding timing and payment of the trail requirement. 9, water and utility easements established in conjunction with the design and future church phases. And 10, additional fire department topics. An updated site plan with topics has been approved by Chief Price and submitted to the commission. Mr. Afrussi stated that the town staff recommends approval of the CUP site plan and associated documents for the Creekwood United Methodist Church upon satisfactorily meeting the conditions and with the administrative approval of the town staff.
Read that last sentence again.
Louder.
Yes.
Mr. Afrussi.
Town staff recommends approval of the CUP site plan and associated documents for the Creekwood United Methodist Church upon satisfactorily meeting the conditions and with the administrative approval of the town staff. Yep. So they've given them, here's the conditions that we're looking for that you need to meet in order for this to get approved.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there are little comments in there, like they're saying, we think we recommend the approval of the 3-foot difference. We think that'll be all right. Mm-hmm. They're saying that we don't think the tower will be a problem, and if the FAA are okay with it, then we should be okay with it. But all of these, if buts and maybes, it comes down to the CUP is recommended for approval only if they satisfactorily meet the conditions that have just been laid out here and all these 10 conditions. Right? So at no point can you say there that a CUP has been recommended approval without condition.
Yep, not at all. In fact, a lot of conditions. I mean,
a lot of 10
look
conditions.
Look at all those conditions. Yes, quite a few.
That are multi-claused and complex sometimes. It's if this, exactly. Then this, then this, then you're good to go.
Yep, exactly. Multifaceted.
That's exactly right. So this is a continuation of the meeting. You see here, I highlighted a few more areas that are important. The commissioners, the town staff, and the church representatives discussed issues regarding fire access, topography of the land, and the existing landscaping, traffic issues, and access in and out of the development. Decibel levels and noise levels from the bell tower, the height of the one-story multi-purpose building, and the height of the bell tower, FAA regulations for the bell tower, Lovejoy school facilities, and pending approval letter, water and utility easements, coordination with the City of Allen for water service, and the developer's time constraints. This is the same process that the LDS Church is going through with their temple right now, where everyone's accusing them of being bigoted because they're asking the exact same questions and pointing things out. Then the important part down here at the bottom, this is the planning and zoning meeting says, Commissioner Renee Powell made a motion to approve the conditional use permit, site plan, and associated documents for the Creekwood United Methodist Church consisting of 28 acres, located on the southwest corner of Stacy Road, upon satisfactorily meeting the following conditions. The 38-foot, one-story multi-purpose building height is approved. The location and footprint of the bell tower is approved, with the height, noise, and sound system of the bell tower to be addressed at a later time in the development process. So what they're saying is, we recommend you approve the CUP with the site footprint for the tower to be approved. However, the height itself is not currently approved. It needs to go through the development process and will be determined later on in the process. And that's exactly the wording that we saw put in the ordinance. Now, keep in mind, these are meeting minutes. So this is the minutes of the discussion. Nothing in here is law or is binding until it's made into an ordinance. So just like you have the House of Representatives and the Senate, and they both vote on different versions of the bill, they then have to consolidate all of that, put it into a bill that then gets signed by the president. All the discussions that's going on to the side between the House and the Senate doesn't matter. What matters is that bill that gets signed into law by the president. That is the final law. And that's how this is going to be. There is going to be a final ordinance, which is drafted, which is the conditions. It is the CUP that is approved, and it lists all the conditions.
Yeah, and that's confusing, I think, because a lot of the LDS members, when we get these emails from them, they point to the minutes and the discussion in the minutes, which, as Nemo pointed out, lots of commas, if and buts, but they point to the discussion in the minutes as if, aha, see, this is legal now. And that's not how it works. And we even consulted with a friend of ours who is a city attorney for another city. And he said, oh my gosh, a lot of stuff is said in minutes, like a lot of stuff.
Yep.
Ordinances trump minutes. You can say whatever you want in the minutes. They must be recorded. That is not a legal precedent.
Doesn't matter who said what to who. Doesn't matter whether the mayor himself went, I like the look of that tower. That looks like a nice tower.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem as well is the way this is written. I mean, we're going to come to this bit now, but there's a lot of positive language on conditions. So they're saying that the height to be approved. They will talk about approval in a sort of weird, I'm trying to think of how to describe it, but in a weird sort of sentence structure that makes it sound like it's been approved when actually it's part of a condition. The approval of the bell tower will need to be dealt with. That's one of the conditions, not the approval of the bell tower has been granted.
Yep.
Right. But when we read through this, Landon, I think I'll be able to kind of maybe explain myself a little bit better and maybe speak to how the LDS folks are reading this.
Yeah, yes. And it is convoluted. And we recognize that. We understand why we're getting these emails saying, take your videos down, you're lying, because we understand it's convoluted. And I also feel you just made me think of something, Nemo. Their language in the notes, it is very friendly and it is very positive about this project. And I think it's because they really like this church and the church has been working with them for months. And so, of course, they're going to say, oh, yeah, that's great. I totally approve. That's really nice. And let's just make sure they meet conditions. They're going to use that kind of language because I think they have a positive feeling about the project altogether. I think they also are pretty positive they can come to a consensus because this group hasn't been litigious. It hasn't been belligerent. It's just a process of people working together. So I think you see that reflected in the meeting minutes. But again, that's not a legal approval. It's just people showing this is a good thing. This is going to be great. We'll work it out.
So this next set of meeting minutes, and this is where really the confusion comes from, because people point to it and say the town council approved the bell height at 150 feet. No, the town council approved the cup as submitted, and the cup included the Exhibit C, which said that the height was not. So when you read the wording, they're going to say, in fact, let's read it and then we'll talk about it. Can you read that, Nemo? Is that too small?
Let's let Nemo take this. He has a really good handle on this. It makes it very clear.
A motion was made by Councilwoman Summers to approve the conditional use permit for Creekwood United Methodist Church as submitted. That's key there, including the 150-foot height for bell tower and 38-foot height for the building, and includes all other conditions listed on the ordinance in Exhibit C, which includes the additional height of the building, 38 feet, and goes back to planning and zoning for the bells, but with the note that the council has no problems with the tower. Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fraser, with all in favour. Now, okay, sorry, I'm just going to go for it here for a second. So... What is being said here is that a motion was made to approve the conditional use permit as submitted, and it was submitted with Exhibit C, as was said, including, therefore, the 150-foot height for bell tower and 38-foot height for the building, and includes all other conditions listed on the ordinance in Exhibit C. The phrase all other conditions, therefore, implies that the 150-foot height for the bell tower and 38-foot height for the building are conditions. They are conditions, and then they talk about all other conditions that are on C as well. And then just to make it extra clear that when talking about Exhibit C, they say, which includes the additional height of the building, 38 feet, and goes back to planning and zoning for the bells, fine, but with the note that the council has no problem with the tower. Now, it's this note that the council has no problem with the tower. The council can have no problem with the tower. They can make that note. They can say, yes, we want planning and zoning to know that we have no problem with this. But until planning and zoning make a decision that says, well, then that is approved, it's not approved. People can say all sorts of lovely things about it. Doesn't mean it's approved. Have I got that correct? And Landon, please correct me if I've misstated any of that.
No, that's exactly correct. By saying they're saying the cup pad that you applied for has a 150-foot tower. Right now, we don't have a problem with the tower. they're basically saying it can be approved up to 150 feet, but it's not approved yet. We're sending it back to planning and zoning to work out because if it's too tall and the sound goes out too far because it's so high up, the sound travels too far, that has to all be worked out. Maybe you lower the height and keep the decibels the same so it's louder for the church people. Maybe you have to turn up the decibels of the bell tower or turn down the decibels so it doesn't travel over to the school and to the neighbors. So they're saying this all has to be worked out, but we're going to approve the cup so you can start building your church. We've approved the footprint. We've approved where you can put the bell tower. We've approved the 38-foot height on the church so you can have that 3-foot variance. But the height, the sound system still has to go back to planning and zoning, and it has to get their approval first.
Anything that was within Exhibit C has to be addressed. Those are the conditions of the CUP. So it can be granted with conditions, those conditions being Exhibit C. So those are going to have to get dealt with.
And that's right here is Exhibit 3, which was attached to the
Exhibit C.
To the ordinance. And right there, it can't be any clearer. The location and footprint of the bell tower is approved with the height, noise, and sound system to be addressed at a later time. So the council says we don't have a problem with 150 foot tall, but all these issues with the FAA, with the shadows, with all that still needs to be approved and looked at. But you can go ahead and start building your church, but the tower needs to go through some more processes. And that's the same thing that I showed earlier on.
And I don't know if you're going to get to this, but people are also talking about how they planned a second stage to put a 78-foot tall building there, right?
That's correct.
But again, that was a notification that, okay, we are planning to do this in 2 stages. The first stage, 38 foot, the next stage, 78. Well, no approval was given for 78 foot. Approval was put on condition for 38 feet. Approval was made as part of the CUP for that. But no one ever said, well, yeah, you will be able to go on and do 78 feet. It was just acknowledged that was what they would like to do. That's all it is.
That's correct. They mentioned that in phase 2, we may come back in phase 2 and do request a 78-foot high roof. However, the only thing that they're voting on is the conditional use permit as submitted.
That's in front of them. Yeah.
It's in front of them, and the conditions that are listed on that specific CUP. Now,
because they can't vote on anything else. They can only vote on what's in front of them.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And the fire marshal said, I have no problem with the 78-foot height of the phase 2. Well, the thing is he's not a voting member. It's not up for vote. All the fire marshal is doing is commenting on the fact that if they went to 78 foot, I have the capability to fight a fire in that location. Right. So I don't have a problem with if you want to approve 78 foot, I could fight a fire there. But it's up to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that's not even in front of them. That's just a heads up. This is what we're thinking maybe in the future. Okay. Yeah. So not part of the ordinance.
I was going to say very quickly, I think a lot of the confusion also rests on the fact that lay people are reading this and they think since they see it in official minutes that it means something. It doesn't. It's just mentioned. It's just people mentioning things, getting opinions. What do you think, fire chief? It doesn't have any legal precedence whatsoever. Yeah. Now, lawyers, of course, should be able to read through this and cut through everything very quickly as to what's real and what isn't. But a lay person, an LDS member reading through some of these things like we are might go, oh, look, the fire chief said he approved it. Or, oh, look, they said that they liked it.
And
that doesn't mean anything, but I understand why people might think it did.
And to your point of understanding, I am sympathetic that if I were convinced, having read it, that my church is being denied something that another church was given, I would be upset. Of course I would. But I would hopefully, I think, either understand it or at least understand the fact that, oh, yes, no, 150 feet was approved. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. But my church is asking for 173 feet and 8 inches, and that's a bit taller. So it's still, I've run out of sympathy very quickly, but I have some sympathy towards the beginning.
Well, and if you want to take that argument, Nemo, there's a big problem with that argument because you're saying they got 150 foot variance. Therefore, I should get 174-foot height variance.
Which is nonsense.
But they also only got a variance to 38 foot for the roof of their building. They're building a 60-something
65 feet.
Yeah.
5-foot roof. So you're over almost twice the height of what they got.
Right. But I know their workaround. And we started to notice that not only height of the steeple, drawing your eyes upward, bringing heaven and earth together, was said over and over. They are now starting to mention over and over the mass of the walls, the height of the walls, the height of the celestial room, the mass of the walls. They say those words over and over in recording meetings we have, and also in front of councils. Landon and I are like, what the heck is mass of the walls? What does that mean? Now we know it's because they also need this huge exemption on the actual even height of the building itself is way beyond what
it's
others
those notoriously massive office building walls in downtown Belgium that are just going to give them exactly what they want, right?
The mass of the walls. Yep.
Massive.
And they talked about, the arched ceilings of the celestial room, the high windows. Who was it that said God dwells on the second floor? I mean,
what?
That was one day. Because he's higher than us.
He's higher than us. The celestial
room's on the second floor. Because
someone in this situation is high, and I don't think it's God.
Yes.
And
so, but
someone's chatting nonsense.
Exactly. They never say anything without needing to say it for some kind of legal workaround. So if you listen to these new things introduced into the dialogue, like we picked up on massive walls, you kind of deconstruct it and you're like, oh, it's because they're worried about the building itself is too high, not just the spire. So they need introducing that
the
too.
65-foot height is not what they're claiming is the roof, right? Because that's the height of the building from the outside, but on the inside it's only 40 foot or so. So they've lost a load of ceiling space. So that argument doesn't even make any sense either, because they've got this void of about 20 feet or so, maybe 15 feet, that runs along the top of the temple just to make it look bigger from the outside. So the argument about the walls need to be big and massive and vaulted on the inside, that bears that holds no weight, because they're only going up to 40-something feet on the actual internal roof.
Well,
I hope everybody paid attention to that. That is a really good point. It's like a faux mass of the walls.
I believe there might be mechanical space up there. That may be where all the mechanical rooms are and stuff.
So, but again, that's like Rebecca said, that's not worship space. So it's not like they need that to go up there, because you can put mechanical elsewhere if you need to. You can move it in different places.
You can put it in the basement.
It's crazy
or whatever.
The stuff they say, but and most of these statements are coming from lawyers. But the mass of the walls, the height of the walls. God is above us on the second floor. We need he needs to dwell there so we can look up to him. These are all the things that we're hearing.
If you want to argue, look, they gave 150 feet, or they were okay with 150 feet for the Methodist church. Therefore, we should get 170 feet. Well, they were only okay with 38 feet on the roof. So maybe you should only get 38 feet on your roof as well.
Cuts both ways.
What would that bring it to?
Yeah, cuts both ways. You don't get to pick and cherry pick. But in this case, the tower wasn't the cup was approved with conditions, and the conditions are that the tower has to go back to the Planning and Zoning Board for review and approval. So the Planning and Zoning Board is still discussing the height. So the members want to say on September 5th or whatever that date was, 2006, the cup was approved and you approved that tower.
No.
That is not what happened, because if that was the case, there would be no need for it to go back to the Planning and Zoning Board. It's approved, but it doesn't. It has to go back to the Planning and Zoning Board. The Planning and Zoning is still discussing the height. It was sent back to the P&Z, and they are continuing to discuss the height and still have to vote and write up what was approved in order for this to be approved. So here is September 14th. This is after September 5th. This is after the approval. This is after it's been signed as an ordinance with Exhibit C that says it has to go back to Planning and Zoning. And what do we find? We find exactly that. It went back to Planning and Zoning. Here it is. Status of conditional use permit for the Creekwood United Methodist Church consisting of 28 acres. It says Alan Afrasi introduced this item by explaining that on August 24, 2006, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved a conditional use permit for the Creekwood United Methodist with conditions. At its August 24, 2006 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission asked the town staff to provide status of the cup for the church. At the September 5th, 2006 Town Council meeting, 5 citizens spoke in support of this cup request, and the Town Council made the following motion to approve this request, which was unanimously approved. The 154-foot height of the bell tower is approved. 2, the 38-foot built, and notice this is a semicolon. Number 2, the 38-foot building height is approved. 3, all other conditions of approval as stated in Exhibit C of the adopting ordinance are approved. And 4, that the town staff shall tell the Planning and Zoning Commission that the town council does not have a problem with the sound system of the bell tower. Mr. Afrasi further included information regarding the following items. 1, airport height hazards. 2, proposed bell tower height and chimes. And 3, a letter of understanding between Creekwood United Methodist Church and Lovejoy School signed by both parties. So they're still presenting information from the FAA on the sound system. They're doing exactly what the condition C said, Exhibit C said had to happen. You have to present this stuff to the Planning and Zoning Board so that they can make a final determination on the height and the sound system.
But you can see how this was written, how it causes some confusion, right?
Yes.
Because it's written to say, at the town council meeting, 5 citizens spoke in support, and the town council made the following motion to approve this request, which was unanimously approved. And then it lists the motion. The 154 height of the bell tower is approved. You read that sentence, you go, okay, right, so they approved the height of the bell tower.
Yep.
No, it's a condition.
Yes.
Conditional that it is approved. Conditional that the building height is approved. Conditional that all other conditions of approval as stated, because that's the key there. The way that sentence number 3 is phrased, all other conditions of approval as stated in Exhibit C of the adopting ordinance are approved. It's that they will be approved. That is what needs to happen. And that the town staff shall tell, again, will do something. It hasn't happened. It's not past tense. It's if it is. This is all future tense.
Yep.
And the very fact that it's now at a meeting 2 weeks later at the Planning and Zoning meeting is exactly the proof that it had to go back to Planning and Zoning for
they wouldn't be talking about it otherwise.
Final determination, or they wouldn't be talking about it.
That's right.
It goes on, it says, Steve Howard, the project manager and representative of Creekwood United Methodist Church, provided information from the Federal Aviation Administration approving the bell tower height, and lighting on the bell tower would be at the discretion of the church as long as FAA regulations are followed. So again, he's coming back and he's saying, we went to the FAA, they don't have a problem with the height. So he's working the height issue still. If it's already approved, but no, the FAA has said, okay, it's all right. We're okay. Now they say, oh, well, you can, the FAA has no, they don't care how we light it. They say it's up to us. Now, that doesn't mean that the town can't say you're lighting it too bright or still have lighting issues with it. The FAA just said, we don't care how you light it. It's up to you how you light it.
As long as you are within our regulations.
As long as you're within our regulations. Then it says, discussion followed between the commission members, the town staff, and Mr. Howard regarding the decibel levels and noise impact from the bell tower and the frequency of the bells. So they continued a discussion with the sound system. And remember, the height plays into the sound. How far is the sound going to travel? All of that has to get worked through. That's the end of the September 14th, 2006 meeting. We have no other documents at all. This is the last correspondence on the bell tower with the city for 11 years.
11 years, yeah.
So what would we have seen if everything were worked out at Planning and Zoning and there was a big red letter stamp on something and that height had been improved? What would we have?
Well, they either would have put a separate sheet of paper that said, here's the approval with the conditions, or they'd have given them back the site plan with the conditions specifically stated on the site plan, and the approved site plan would list what the agreed height was, what the agreed decibel level was. All of that needed to be included as part of the site plan for that bell tower to be approved.
And there's nothing. It just peters out with minutes saying we're discussing everything. And as this says, nothing further happened on the bell tower for 11 years. They built the building, but they did not build the tower. And that's the building. It's beautiful.
That's the building.
Yeah, I've been there. It's lovely.
Yeah, that's really pretty.
And they didn't build the tower. And whether that's because they didn't have funding, whether they couldn't come to an agreement on the sound system, whether
it just died out.
Well,
we don't know.
If they couldn't come to an agreement on the sound system, we would have that documented.
Exactly.
Because you can't have that discussion anywhere but planning and zoning,
yeah.
Right. So my gut says they just ran out of funding or they lost desire to build it. They just didn't want to, and that's fine.
And they moved on without it. But because they did, there was never an approval. It never got approved.
No.
So what happens 11 years later, July 13th, 2017, we get a memorandum from Israel Roberts, the planning manager of the city. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the church has already built this church now that we just saw without the bell tower. But they now want to add some additional classrooms onto it. And because it is more than 300 square feet, they have to come ask for another conditional use permit. So they come to the planning and zoning meeting and they ask. And here's kind of a synopsis in the memorandum as to what's going to happen for this. He said, building elevations using matching materials with those of the existing structure, the proposed expansion features a stone and plaster finish with composition shingles that is highlighted by a decorative steeple. The steeple is 55 feet tall and is for decorative purposes only. The steeple will not include the bell sound system as previously approved. So they're coming back and they're saying, during part of this expansion, we've abandoned the bell tower idea. We're now just going to put a steeple on that's 55 foot tall and is for, purposes only, decorative purposes only. The history. In 2006, Creekwood United Methodist received a CUP for a building expansion that included the installation of a 154-foot tall digital bell tower. The bell tower is no longer in the development plan for the church and will not be installed. The proposed steeple is for decorative purposes only.
Now, it says there, putting my best angry emailer hat on.
Yes.
Well, it says that a CUP was received for a building expansion that included the installation of a 154-foot tall digital bell tower. Well, yes, it was included in the CUP as a condition, as something that wasn't approved, as something that needed to be addressed. And they're saying, don't worry, we're not going to try and address that anymore. We're just going to go to a 55-foot tall bell tower. Am I reading that right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, but again, you're correct. You look at that and you go, can't you guys see this? It just takes a little digging in. It is convoluted. We do admit that.
And they're saying, don't worry, we're not putting the sound system in and all the things that held up the bell tower previously. This is just decorative. There's no sound associated with it.
Yeah. And 55 feet, I don't know if you're going to talk about that, but the reason they were able to get 55 feet, probably without any issue, is that a couple of years before, the church had their 68-foot spire on the meeting house approved. Because that became the tallest
spire. Yeah.
That became the tallest spire in town when that was built. Yeah. And then Creekwood can go back, oh, well, we're only building a steeple to 55 feet. So they could have argued RLUIPA, they could have argued all this stuff and gone, well, you gave that to the LDS church, so you should give us 55. Because that's how that works. Well, you can ask for less if someone's got more and go, well, you gave them more. You can't go, well, you gave them slightly less than what we're asking for, so why can't we have more than they got? Doesn't work.
And RLUIPA says you have to treat all of them the same. So that's, so this is called precedence. They've set the precedence in town. The steeple height, the LDS steeple is 60-something feet tall.
68 feet.
So every other building can have that. Every other church building.
The other church buildings have slightly less tall steeples in them. But on average, your steeple height's in that 50 to 60 foot range is where the steeple heights are going that are allowed. And that is the town precedent. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
What was that graphic before? Sorry, I didn't catch what that was. Is that the bell tower?
This is the way they proposed the church. And the 38-foot height is the height of the 38-foot roof. And then you've got a 55-foot, so you can see it sticks up. It looks very similar to what the LDS Stake Center might look like. Again, I wanted to point out, this is the site where this church is built. It's 28 acres, so it's very large acreage. And so the temple site is fitting in an area about that size, 8 acres. So you can see that you're going to have a lot more impact on your neighbors when you're putting ginormous pieces of steeple and 60-foot building is going to have a lot more impact on what your neighbors see and how it impacts them than it would on a 28 acre. That's why
one of our friends there, it's 160 feet from his window and his door.
So all he'll see is building.
I don't know if you can picture how close that is. Yeah,
you can see that these neighbors, that's not going to be an issue because it's 28 acres in this case. So my point,
the closest thing they're close to is a school. Which, you know, again,
which
and
also has
that's
bells.
Exactly, and has noise and whatnot, and neighbors are used to that already, right?
So the reason I'm showing this is simply to say that a conditional use permit, every one of them gets evaluated individually. There may be some precedents that you can look back on, but you have to look at it and on an individual. How does this affect you? And I want to tell just a little story. When I lived in Idaho, I was the president of the Homeowners Association for a brief time. And one of the issues that came up is that we were right across the street from the high school. And the people across the street from us, I think it was a Lutheran. I think he was a Lutheran minister. And they decided that they wanted to have seminary just like the LDS had. And so they asked if they could build an expansion onto their house, which was a classroom that the students could then come across the street and attend basically Lutheran seminary 1 hour a day so that they could do the same thing that the LDS kids did. Well, the Homeowners Association says you can't have daycare, you can't have visit, so we had to make a decision, and they did this before I'd moved in, and they ended up allowing that house to have that classroom. Now, if that's the case, one would argue, well, what happens if the LDS church couldn't have got land across from the high school, and they decided to buy the house that I lived in, that's on the other corner, and they said, you know what, we're going to turn this into a seminary building, and we're going to make all your bedrooms will be classrooms, and we're going to have 300 students coming over every day, 6 periods a day, because it's Idaho and has a large LDS population. Well, that's a whole different consideration than 13 students at the Lutheran going 1 hour a day is a completely different scenario than 300 students coming over 6 periods a day. Yep. And so the Homeowners Association would look at each one of those differently as to whether they were going to allow it or not. And I will say the dangerous thing that happened is those people moved and sold the house. And what happened is somebody bought the house and used the classroom for a business, which was not allowed. And then that became a whole problem because they had allowed the classroom in. Now it became a future problem as to what do we do because businesses aren't allowed. But they bought the house to put their business in that back room. So these things can come back to bite you. And that's why you have to be careful. And the lawyers we've talked to have said that a precedence from 20 years previous or 18 years previous, a discussion or an approval cannot be considered as a precedent or should not be considered as a precedent 20 years later, especially when it was never built. Because this is, you could go back and say, well, in 1800s, they allowed us to do this on that property. Well, there's a point where that doesn't really apply anymore. And the ones we've talked to have said 18 years is pretty far back to try to make a case that you have any precedence. But again, it was never passed. Therefore, there is no precedence.
Do you have any thoughts to this point, Nemo?
No, not you're particularly, to be honest.
Moving on. Okay. Yeah. I love that seminary story, Landon. That's crazy. And you're right, because the CUP has to look at everything. That huge lot, 28 acres, a church in the middle of it, has a very different impact from what we showed, that condensed size where the temple will be right there. It's a whole different story. You have to look at the big picture.
And so here is where the 55-foot tower did get approved by the Planning and Zoning on July 13th, 2017. And I want to point out one thing here. Commissioner Carlin stated that his wife was employed by the church and they are both church members. He would recuse himself from voting.
How novel.
How novel. Yes. And he asked in the meeting, do I need to recuse myself? And his wife played the piano and she was paid to play the piano. So they said, well, it probably technically doesn't require you to recuse yourself, but it would probably be best if you did, just so there's no issues. And he said, I'll gladly do that. Compare that to, Cody and whatever. So somebody who's paid for
Kiba.
Paid to play the piano, $30-$40 a week, compared to someone who's gone to a temple and made an oath and a covenant that they would give everything they had. But that doesn't qualify for recusal when you say, I'm going to give everything I have, or which the church would give me or may bless me. I will give everything I have to
even
the building up of the kingdom of God, even my life. Yeah. But that's not a reason to recuse yourself, but because your wife plays the piano in the church and gets paid.
Or neither, like in Heber, where a member of the county commission was standing there with a golden shovel next to President Nelson at the groundbreaking. That's not a reason to recuse yourself, that you're standing there with the golden shovel. So it's so funny. Yeah.
And then August.
Go ahead, Nemo.
I was just going to say that has caused a problem in other areas as well. We have that Mormon Leaks video of a senator or someone someone
Smith.
important in politics, basically being like, yeah, brethren, it's you guys. I'd listen to you over my constituents, essentially. And it was the big question around Mitt Romney. It's the question that John Sweeney was trying to get to the bottom of with Jeffrey R. Holland in that famous interview, being like, well, hang on, he's sworn an oath to be obedient to this church, and he's about to become the most powerful man in the world, potentially. Where's the conflict of interest there? How does that play out?
Yeah, exactly.
Just fudged the answer. And if any of our viewers or listeners have not come across that Smith video, that is crazy. He's an Oregon senator, and he basically said, we just wait around in my office, my staff and I, to get a call from Salt Lake to know what to do next. And then he talked about voting for to invade Iraq because it might increase missionary efforts. And then ironically, Smith, Hatch, and Bennett, all LDS senators, are the ones that introduced and pushed through RLUIPA, Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Person Act. This is the act that the church has used for 2 decades as a sword against cities to do exactly what we're talking about here. So it's all connected. Now I sound like a conspiracy theorist, don't I? Tinfoil hat, where is it?
Here is August 1st, 2017, Fairview Town Council, where they approved the 55-foot height of the steeple and the addition to the church.
Right.
Just as with what's going on with the temple now, it goes to the Planning and Zoning Committee, and they will approve it or deny it, and then it has to go to the town council for them to sign off as well. Yep. So that process is being followed here as well. Just because Planning and Zoning said yes, we recommend approval, it's still ultimately down to the town council.
Yeah, it is. And again, it's a misunderstanding of the political process, and who could understand it, really, unless you've been involved in it. There's just so many, it has to go here and then there, and then this person has to do this has to be signed, this has to be official. We don't know. The average person doesn't know.
And so what we're about to see now is what we would have seen had the 150-foot bell tower been approved, right? There would be one of these in existence.
Yep.
Well, right? there was an ordinance like this that I showed earlier, the 2006, I think, -024 ordinance, which had the Exhibit C that said it's going back to the Planning and Zoning.
Yeah.
This is the 2017-14 ordinance where they approved the 55-foot height.
Yeah. But I'm saying we would have one of these that would have no more conditions. It would be good. Everything would be good to go.
And that's exactly what you see right here. Passed and approved by the town council of the town of Fairview, Texas, this first day of August, 2017. Yeah. You see there's no Exhibit C on here. There's no conditions. There's no other. There's the site plan approved as is. There's the site plan, no conditions. Another thing to notice here is it's signed by the mayor. It's attested to by the town secretary. It's stamped with
the town attorney.
With the town attorney, and it's stamped for approval. Here's the 2006-24 with the Exhibit C. This is the ordinance that they're claiming passed it. Notice what's missing. Signed by the mayor. It is not attested to. It does not have a stamp on it. It is not. There's not a place for the attorney to sign off. So that even raises a question as to whether it was official, but we're told that after 3 years, these things become default. If there's no action, they default to approval. But there's a question as to whether it's actually ever been fully approved, because it doesn't have the stamp. It never was attested to, probably because they were waiting for the
planning and zoning,
for a solution on the planning and zoning, which never happened.
Right. So this means in process. This document may look official to everybody. It may look like something was approved, but it's still in process. This document from years later, 55 feet, that is what approval looks like right there. A stamp, signatures, no mention of any conditions or
no
another
exhibits, no conditions,
nothing else. Right. So I know it's hard to understand, but when you look at those two ordinances, it's pretty clear.
Okay.
That's correct.
People can stop emailing us now.
No, I think they're going to email us even more, but we are just trying to educate.
So here's what the final look of Creekwood United Methodist Church looks like in Fairview, Texas, with the steeple.
Yep.
And you notice that the pitch of the roof there, remember, was approved at 38 feet. That steeple is 55 feet. I think that's with the cross on the top. It goes to the 55 feet or whatever, very close to that. And you can see that that's what was built. So to say there's a precedence for higher, this is it from a different angle. But to say that it was approved and that they got a bell tower, they did not. It never finished the process. And I'll just show you, just for comparison, this is the proposed Creekwood. This is how they proposed it with the bell tower.
Right.
And that's a picture of the bell tower that they proposed, and they wanted to go to 150 whatever feet. On the right is the LDS temple. And I want to make a few comparisons here. If you look at the magenta line there, that is the precedence of the highest roof line allowed to a church right now. And you can see that the United Methodist
roof is that?
Church. I can't remember whose roof that is.
Another church, though.
It's a different church, because they didn't.
Oh, I know who it is. It's the ones next to the LDS church. And they asked for 40. That's 42 feet because they wanted to put an aircon unit on top, I believe, or something mechanical on top.
To get to the top of the air conditioning unit.
Yeah.
Here is what the church is requesting, is a 65-foot roof height. So you can see how much higher they're asking for than the precedents and then what was approved under that same cup that everyone's arguing. Well, they got the steeple. Well, yeah, they only got a 38-foot roof too, and you guys you guys are asking for a 65-foot roof. So you're asking for exemptions for multiple things, and your argument for a steeple doesn't solve your argument for a roof, which is why they're now saying the walls and the height of the celestial room. They're trying to get around the law that way as well. And here's the highest steeple precedence currently in Fairview, which does belong to the LDS Church. It's 68 feet, and it goes to the very bottom of the 173-foot spire.
And that's
which
the
is
yellow
65
line.
feet. Yeah.
The yellow line is the LDS current steeple. Yeah. And then Nemo, to your point right there, why don't you talk about the steeples and that 20-foot difference? I mean, everything from the last hour is a moot point, honestly.
Yeah, because the church has got a 68-foot steeple currently. They've got the tallest steeple in town. Now they want to put a building next door that is only 3 feet shorter at its roof height than the total maximum height for a religious building currently in town. That's before we even get to the steeple. In my latest video I've done, and in the video that will be coming out in a few hours, depending on when this is released, but a few hours as of the Sunday that we're recording this, I put up a picture where, as you're looking down Stacey Road, you can see the temple behind the current meeting house. You can see that the roof basically touches the spire, and then you can see just how much the steeple of the temple goes above that. So it's quite a monstrous building. But to the point here, even if they're asking for the precedents that they think that the Methodist Church got, you can see that their steeple's going even higher again than that. And I'm just looking to check exactly what the height of the Paris temple was, because I do know that one. That's one of those facts, but I want to make sure I get it absolutely right. 42 feet tall. So if the church wants to build a temple that is entirely within the roof precedence of religious buildings, they could build one exactly the same as they built in Paris, France in 2017.
Yep.
They have built a temple that would entirely fit within current precedents of roof height today. They've built one already. They did it in Paris. They could do it here.
That's right.
No, and there are other examples too that we brought up here. So, here you go. Here's a good one. Okay.
Here is how they how the LDS temple compares to the current United Methodist Church. With a 55-foot high, you can see their steeple isn't even as high as the bottom of the roof of the LDS temple in size. So to say that they got this great approval that now allows you to build this because they got this, and this is what the final product looked like. Because the tower never did get approved. It never got through the process. The final approval, they ended up settling on a 55-foot. They had to make some concessions as well, it looks like. And whether that was budget driven or something else, we don't know. But that's what the final building looks like. Rarely does a building come out looking like you originally planned it to be. If you're looking for a cup, because the town's going to come back and say, here's your requirements.
Yeah, it's a process.
I mean, to a point, you could hide the entire Creekwood United Methodist Church behind the temple.
Yep. And you wouldn't see a single piece of it. Yep. So, Rebecca, do you want to kind of hit this?
Yeah, we'll just read this really quick, kind of in a nutshell. And then kind of along the lines of what Nemo was saying about Paris, we have some interesting slides on that as we finish up. So clearing up the misconception, it is important to note that the written ordinance takes precedence over any public minutes. And we talked about that, any discussion, debate, or oral representations. The town council approved the Creekwood Cup on September 5th, 2006 for ordinance 2006-24. Here is what it actually says, which is consistent with the August 24th, 06 Planning and Zoning hearing, August 29th, 06 Planning and Zoning recommendations, and the September 5th, 06 Town Council meetings. So everything's consistent. A motion was made by Councilman Summers to approve the conditional use permit for the Creekwood United Methodist Church as submitted, including the 150-foot height for the bell tower and, in capital letters in red, the 38-foot height for the building, and red again, includes all other conditions listed on the ordinance in Exhibit C. Please notice that the approved language below in Exhibit C is identical to the recommended language from August 24th, 2006 and August 29th, 2006 from the P&Z. They're all saying the same thing. The location and footprint of the bell tower is approved, with the height, noise, and sound system of the bell tower to be addressed at a later time in a development process. So yes, the 154-foot tower was approved only if all the conditions in Exhibit C were also met. Those Exhibit C conditions were never met. So hopefully people can stop on this slide for a minute and read it. It kind of sums up everything that we said. Nemo, do you have anything to add to that? We're just trying to make this
on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just put it on your Facebook, on your Instagram, put it up on social media, and make it just really clear. This is how this works.
This is it. And for any residents there.
There were conditions attached to the approval. So yes, you can say something is approved with conditions, and those conditions were not met. Therefore, it wasn't approved.
Yep, that's it. So hopefully this helps some of the Fairview United residents understand what is happening and why perhaps their LDS neighbors were a little confused, and maybe everybody can dig in a little deeper and try to understand that nobody's against anybody, nobody's denying anybody, nobody's trampling on anyone's rights. It's simply a political process in a town, and it was not approved. So, okay, so here's the question. Nemo kind of led into this. Is there a solution to this scenario? Because, towns are being ripped apart. Ones that are farther along in the process that have been fighting this fight for a year and a half, relationships are suffering, community is suffering, towns are suffering. Is there a solution? Is there something that someone could do? And Nemo kind of touched on this. Let's look at these slides. I think these are great.
Is there something that would work for both in both instances? And the town council specifically said, here's what we're giving you a continuance, LDS Church, so that you can go back, make modifications, and come back and present us a design that fits within the precedents that we have established. which is the 65-foot height on the steeple and the 42
It's
foot,
68 and 42.
68 and 42. 68
Yep.
foot
Yep.
height for the steeple and 42 foot roof height.
Mhm.
Give us something like that,
Yeah.
and then we can consider approving it. Now, there's other
Right.
things. We know the sewer is an issue because that's got to be hooked to the next town. And if they have to put in a septic tank, that's a whole nother
There's
problem.
flood issues.
Flood
There's
issues and other problems.
Flooding,
So this is,
traffic.
but what we're trying to
birds.
do is say, is there other solutions that the church could come back with other than lawyers to solve this and to be a good neighbor?
Yeah.
And here is a temple that fits. You just talked, Nemo, about the Paris, France.
Yes.
This is the Yorba Linda, California temple. It's within 2 inches of meeting the Fairview roof height precedent and within 2 feet of meeting spire height precedent. So the Fairview Code precedent allows for 42-foot roof height. The Yorba Linda temple is 42 feet, 2 inches. So if they can cut 2 inches off the peak of that roof, they would be within code. Fairview Code precedent allows for 68-foot spire height. Yorba Linda is 70 foot tall. So you could just lower that by 2 feet,
but
and you would be
crazy
within.
is if the church had come in with this, or had just not come in as strong, and the town had gone, sorry, no, that's too big, and then come back with this, people probably would have said yes. They would have allowed the church to increase it by 2 inches. Now you've got people saying not an inch taller, like it says on my shirt, right? You've got people saying that now because the church has come in so strong, threatening legal action, bringing up the DOJ, bringing up all this stuff. If they just come in and said, we want this temple, it's 178 feet tall, and the people had gone, no, sorry, that's too big, and they'd come back with this, 70 feet tall and then 42 too, they would have gone, okay, yeah, that's fair. We can give you, 2 inches more on a roof height, and we can give you 2 feet on a steeple. That's fine. I'm almost positive, I'm almost certain, having met the people in Fairview, that if they'd come in with the right attitude, wanted to work with the town with this design, they would have got it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we do have that recording from the very first meeting where the residents got the note, come to the church building. We're going to talk and tell you what this temple is. And the lawyer was there. And he led with that. He led with the DOJ has made this clear. Your town, if it does not comply, can face a suit. You can hear those Texas residents going, what?
Well, they say that sounds like a threat.
Yes, that sounds like a threat. That's what I'm saying. So this is what they led with. They didn't.
And so just to be clear, I'm not saying that they're now going to spitefully say not 1 inch more, but they were always within their rights to say, no, these are the precedents and this is what it is. And so they are well within their rights. It's not bigotry. It's not religious persecution. It's none of those things. But the point I was making was, if you come in with the right attitude, you get what Creekwood got when they were discussing, they asked for 38 feet and that was 3 feet taller. And they went, yeah, I think 3 feet will be okay. Right? They came in with the right attitude. And so that's what gets you the results. That's what gets people to want to change their rules for you, because that's ultimately what you're asking someone to do. You're asking them to change the rules of their town for you. You don't have a right for them to change those rules any taller than they already were set for religious buildings. You do not have a right to that. It don't care what your religion is, doesn't matter. You're coming in, you're making a request for people to change their standards, practices, their rules, their limits. And if you come in with the right attitude, they might just do it. They might just be receptive to it.
Yep, 100%.
I liken that to if you have a new neighbor moving in and that neighbor is about to buy the house and they come over and they knock on your door and they say, hey, we're looking at moving in next door. Good to meet you. We've got this, antenna that we use. And I want to put it up in the back. It's only going to stick up 2 feet above the thing. But, would that bother you if I put that up there? Then you might say, oh, let me take a look at it. Oh, no, that doesn't bother me. Okay, great. No, go ahead. But if the guy is going to move in and he sends over his lawyer, who then quotes the law that says he's going to put this up whether you like it or not, how excited are you going to be and how welcoming are you going to be to that new neighbor when the first interaction you have with him is his lawyer threatening to sue you if you don't let him put up his antenna on his house?
And then that neighbor goes, oh, no, I'm Mormon and they're persecuting me because I'm Mormon and I want to put up this antenna. It's like, no, it's got nothing to do with you being Mormon, bud. It's got to do with the fact that you brought lawyers in straight away.
Exactly.
Yes.
All
And,
it's
and
got
that's
to do
what's
with.
misunderstood every single time. And I will say again, I feel that the members there are being sucked into this vortex. They were all living peacefully and happily with their non-Mormon neighbors. Everyone was great. The church comes in, it pulls this suing stuff, it digs its feet in, and now the members are in this vortex and they're having to defend and they're having to talk about steeple height and they're having to fight their neighbor. No one deserves this in that town when there are other answers.
And if you're a member in this town and you look at this building and you say, you know what, that's a temple that I can go to. I can do the ordinances. I can be married. I can do everything that is required of me in this temple right here. Church, why aren't you giving a design that works? You've done it in other communities. Why can't you do it in my community? Why are you having to pit me against my neighbor? Because you already had a building designed that you couldn't fit in Prosper. So now you've moved into my town to try to put it in there and override all of their codes because you think you can, because you think you have precedent to allow you to do that.
Right. And this temple really fits. And again, we're not saying build this temple. We understand traffic, flooding, all these other kinds of things, sewage. But this is an example of something that could be a start, is what we're saying. And we have some other schematics here to show that this fits in as far as number of ceiling rooms, all kinds of things. I think this is amazing, just as an example, as a start.
Yeah, compare that profile to the profile we showed earlier with the with the proposed temple. I mean, these now you're fitting in with the community. You're more in line with what the other church buildings are at in that community. Again, we talked about, that the precedent allows for 42 feet, and the church is saying, well, you've given other people a variance of 3 feet. Why aren't you giving us a variance of, what is that, 23 feet? I mean, that's not reasonable. Anyone who looks at that thinks it's not reasonable. You said they could build 152 feet. We want 173 feet, and it's the same thing. Well, it's not the same thing. It's 25 feet higher. And the other was never approved and isn't precedent. So you've got 68 is the highest, which is the LDS church. So you're asking for twice the highest steeple height, which is already the LDS steeple.
feet.
Yes.
They want 106 feet and 8 inches.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's important to point out since it was never approved. Yeah, look at this. This is really, really interesting.
If the Yorba Linda, California temple was elongated by just 20 feet, it can perfectly fit the same amount of instruction and ceiling capacity as the proposed Fairview temple. So you could add 20 feet to the back of this, still at that lower height. And the Fairview proposed, they wanted to have 3 ceiling rooms, a baptistry room, and a celestial room. The current Yorba Linda temple has 2 ceiling rooms, 1 baptistry and 1 celestial room. If you added 20 feet onto the back, you could add another ceiling room. It would have the same number of ceiling rooms and baptistries, and other things. So you could elongate this and get practically the same thing that you already have in there.
I just worry about the 156 feet length, as it were, versus 114 feet. Is it too long for that plot?
Yeah.
Is it going to end up in people's back gardens?
That would all have to be looked at, but typically, you have a setback from the fence line that you can't go so many feet within the fence line. And my guess is that actually would extend into a parking lot, not into somebody's neighborhood. So you might have fewer spaces, but you've got your church next door that has plenty of overflow parking if you need it. So parking should not be an issue.
Well, and again, I have to bring up, here's what they want, right? What they think they need, but that also can change because we just got some information about the Teton River Temple that's being built in Rexburg, Idaho. There is an existing Rexburg Temple already there. Is
that the one where that flood miraculously cleared the ground so that the church could have a temple?
Yes, they just had a groundbreaking, and Elder Gerard did mention that the horrific flood of 1976, which I remember, I was in Washington State, but we had relatives there, and it killed 11 people and caused $400 million worth of damage. The Teton Dam broke. In the groundbreaking last month, or the beginning of this month, for this Teton River Temple, he said that flood was perhaps a cleansing flood to prepare the land for the temple. And I just don't know how you can be that tone deaf, because people still remember that and people still are impacted by that. I remember that. It was very traumatic. But the point of this is that what we have been told, whether it's true or not, I don't know. You have the Rexburg Temple, which I think is 53,000 square feet. Now they're building, just broke ground on 100,000 square foot new Teton River Temple, just down the street, all in Rexburg. That's somebody that's connected to the survey team out there who's doing survey work for the new 100,000 square foot temple, the Teton River, said they're dialing it back because of lowered attendance at the existing Rexburg temple. They're actually now looking at decreasing that footprint, decreasing that square footage. I don't know if that's going to happen. Just keep in mind that number, 100,000 square feet, and see if we hear anything about it. But what I'm saying is sometimes what they think, like here, maybe they don't need that. You have to kind of be more realistic. So things can change in process.
Well, and I think that's a lesson to the people of Fairview, that if a tornado rips through your city and tears down your 7-Eleven, just know that that's the Lord preparing you for a temple.
A temple's coming. That's it. 7-Eleven gone, temple coming in. All right, we're finishing up here.
So here's some more floor plans that show you, it's got all the things you need to do the different work that you do in the temple. You can elongate, you can make some changes. You can see this sits in the middle of the lot, so there is room to extend back and out to the side. Keep it lower and keep it within but you can do it. It can be done. The only reason that they're after this is because they want to go to this larger temple that they've already designed and put it in there and force it upon the citizens because they didn't plan ahead.
I'm going to make a quick point because I love talking about Paris, right? The Paris, France temple serves the members of the entire nation of France, right? And then you go, oh, well, there's not that many members of the Church of France. Well, the church claims there's 39,000 members in France. The Paris, France temple is 42 feet tall, 44,000 square feet in volume. So 44,000 square feet is the proposed volume of the temple in Fairview anyway. So it's comparable square footage. It's short enough that it would fit within the existing roof height. It just doesn't have a steeple. And that's capable of servicing 39,000 members of the church. Are they telling me that there's more than 39,000 members on the rolls within the proposed district for this temple? I don't know, but it'd be worth asking the question.
I thought they said there was like 200,000, but that might be in the whole state of Texas, which has 7 temples. So,
temples, exactly. Yeah. So it's what the however many stakes that are forming the district for this temple. How many members are there that aren't, that are going to be assigned to this temple? Because people are assigned to a certain temple. You're part of a temple district. That's the temple you go to.
And my guess is it would be in that. It would not be much over that because you've got 3,000 per stake. That means you'd have to have 10 stakes, and the Dallas area already has a temple. So that'd mean you'd have to have 20, 30 different stakes in that area, which sounds like a lot for someplace.
So if people know, let us know in the comments. But again, it's doable, right?
Yeah, well, with the smaller temple. Well, and I was going to say, yesterday we were having a conversation. All of a sudden, DeVays of Mormon News Roundup showed up at our studio, our North studio. It was great. Okay. Because he lives in DC. And we were talking about all things temples like this. And we were talking about motivations for building them. And of course, PR is one, the positive PR that you get from this amazing, wonderful building. I think when Washington, DC, was such a landmark and made such a splash, I think they're always trying to recreate the positive PR from that. I think they kind of caught the bug there. But DeVays was pointing out to us from different studies that he had seen, the church, I think, feels that, you're going to gain new members attending the temple by building them in all these places. And actually the studies and the number crunching based on appointments for sessions and things show that there may be a little increase initially when a temple opens, but those are just patrons who already go to the temple in other areas and they're trying out the new temple, right? The flavor of the month. And then within a month or so, it just goes back, it just levels again. There are no new people attending the temple because you've built this temple. And the same with tithes. Of course, there's an increase there when you're building it because you have all this rhetoric and PR around a temple, but then everything just kind of evens out. So you have these initial little surges, but, it's certainly I don't think worth doing what they're doing. And I did notice, you probably noticed at the city council meeting, somebody spoke about the safety of youth driving to temples that are farther away, right? And
drive your own kids.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the point. But that was one of the things. They don't want their youth driving to Dallas. They want a temple that's closer. All the more motivation to find something that works. A Paris, a Yorba Linda, you can start building very quickly after you work out some of the other issues with, sewage and lighting and traffic and stuff. But at least you're on the path. Get that temple put in if you are concerned about driving distances, so the temple's there. And then I also keep thinking about the whole doctrine of spirit prison, right? Maybe a lot of people don't know this, and maybe this is an old doctrine from when I was growing up, but the idea that if you have not had your temple work done, if you have passed away, you're in spirit prison. You're waiting for someone on earth to go to the temple and to do those ordinances for you, which you can no longer do. So isn't that the number one motivation? Shouldn't we just be building a Paris, building a Yorba Linda where it fits right there and get that process started? It just seems like if it's so important, the real reason, the ordinances, as we'll see here, we love to play this. Let's just work with towns and get those temples put in. I think that's more important than a big grandiose building. Any thoughts on that as we close?
I just wanted to say that when you move a temple somewhere or you locate it somewhere, you can say, well, it's closer for me, but it doesn't mean it's closer for somebody else.
That is true.
As we found in Prosper. Prosper was saying, wait a minute.
Yeah. Oh, no.
And you move it to Fairview, Dallas is now closer, but we're supposed to go. Now we have to drive further to go to the temple. So you just made it less safe for the kids in Prosper by putting it in Fairview. And I got to imagine there's more LDS people in Prosper, which is a larger town, than there are in Fairview. So you may have just made it more dangerous by putting it in Fairview. So, but the bottom line here is the church officials are telling us that the size doesn't matter of the temple, and yet they're forcing these large temples into these areas, and they are unwilling to compromise on the size. They're saying it must be this tall. We don't care. We're going to get it this tall. We're going to get it 173 feet. We're going to have 68-foot roofs, and we're not going to compromise on that. Is that what they're saying? That's what they seem to be saying behind the scenes. What are they saying to the public? Well, we've played it before. Let's play it again.
Yep. This is our favorite. Cultural Hall put this together. Thank you to Mormonish viewers for finding these two videos and letting us know.
I hear people, oh, that's a small temple. There's no such thing as a small temple. They're just temples. There's no such thing as small covenants or small ordinances. And see, that to me reflects this fixation on it's the building. Who cares what the size is if you have access to the same covenants and ordinances whereby we have a covenant connection with the Father and the Son?
We're so blessed to have temples. We'll have increasing numbers of temples as the church grows. But it's not the number, and it's not the location, and it's not the architecture. It's the ordinances inside.
Who cares what the size is? Who cares?
It's not the architecture. It's the ordinances inside. It's the ordinances inside.
It's the ordinances inside.
Yep. You can't play that too often. And I will say, we've all heard this, the recorded meeting where the Curtin McConkey's lawyers flew out to talk to stake leadership in Fairview. And one of the stake leaders asked the question. He goes, I really don't know what to say. Why is it so tall? I don't know what to tell people. They're asking us this question. Please instruct us, lawyers, right? And they brought up RLUIPA, and they said, we're afraid it's a race to the bottom. If we give 10 feet here, if we give 20 feet there, then pretty soon we're just going to end up with 35-foot temples. The brethren are emphatic that we do not concede. We do not give any ground, any height, because if we do, then we're not going to be able to build any kind of a spire. So that's their point of view. They're protecting their territory right there.
Faulty, slippery slope reasoning.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a faulty assumption that what happens in one case will happen in all cases.
Yes.
It won't happen to you at all if you just put temples where they're zoned to be put. It's only happening to you because you're choosing to put temples in places where there are restrictions that you're having to try and get around. And a quote that I don't think gets enough airtime, but again, it's because I'm European and I'm obsessed with Paris. But the French presiding bishop of the church, Gerard Courset, said about the Paris temple, when they finally got it built, he said there are a number of constraints that we have, the code that we have to respect. But in the end, it is only good because it makes for a temple that everybody accepts and recognizes as theirs.
And there
He's
it is.
come out and said it's a good thing to respect planning codes and ordinances because it means that everyone's happy with the temple and it fits in and it's great.
And it's a blessing. They keep claiming it's going to be a blessing. After we finish beating you all up, Heber, Cody, after we beat you to the ground and destroy decades-old friendships, it'll be a blessing. You'll see. And that's it. And I tell this story about talking to a family member and saying, explaining some of these things that go on with temples and saying, do you think that's right? Do you see? And they go, well, may not be ethical or right, but it has to be done. And I'm like, why does it have to be done? Because the temple has to be built at all costs. Right. And that's the point of view. And like I said,
it's almost like everyone has to be brought back to live with Heavenly Father again at all costs. Right.
That's right.
There was a certain individual who made that sort of argument who wasn't particularly well received. So.
Well, yes, who would that be? I wonder. But you know what? To be fair, we watch all temples, and we just were watching the Camas, Washington temple, right? It's called Vancouver Temple, but it's going to be built in Camas. So we wanted to find out what was going on there. We watched the city meetings minutes. We watched the film, and it's being built in a commercial zone. There was one person that got him and said, oh, I take my lunch there when I leave work on lunch, and I like to sit in that space. I'll be sad that it's gone. That's my objection. The council's like, okay, thank you. But looks like we'll just pass this along. Looks like everything's in order. Everything's good because they're building where it's zoned for. They can get what they want. No problem whatsoever. There weren't 2,000 white shirts or 5,000 blue shirts out of this meeting at the Camas Town meeting hall. There were just a few people. And, it's still early days. Who knows what's going to be happening? But from the looks of it, commercially zoned. And there you go.
Landon?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, what's the difference between what Kaze said in Paris and what the reaction we're seeing at so many places in the U.S.? And I think the answer is pretty simple. It's RLUIPA. They have a law that they're trying to force down people's throats so that they can get away with what they want to. And so is the church saying what they mean, or are they meaning what they say? Because we're seeing double talk coming, and it seems like they just say whatever needs to be said to get whatever they want. And that attitude, to me, is what is costing them in Fairview. Is, they came around, they said it meets all the codes, it's a 2-story building. They said what they thought everyone wanted to hear, and we see that in the video here. They're saying, who cares what the size is? But when you go back and say, oh, we need a smaller temple, hell no, It's a different,
because they're saying that to members who are complaining that their temple's too small. They're like, stop complaining. It's not too small. The size doesn't matter. Stop being ungrateful. It's about what happens inside.
Yeah.
But then someone tells the church, you have to build it smaller. They're like, hold up. No, I get to decide when size matters and when it doesn't. Thank you very much.
That's it.
No, they don't.
They own the corner market on size. Yeah. And we could look at every temple. There's so many different, think about, I don't know if you're familiar with the Tooele temple that was going to be built in another town.
All the members went, nope.
Yeah. And they just announced the open house date and all of that. But again, those residents who were LDS stood up and said, we don't have any infrastructure from this. We can't do this, and the church very quickly moved the location. But as Landon pointed out, that was a punishment, right? Because all the residents speaking up were LDS members. So they kind of took their ball and walked it down the street. And as I understand it, in that town, it's still divided because a lot of members say, you lost us the temple by your opposition, to the members that were pointing out, we have no infrastructure for this planned utopian, temple recommend only to get through the gate community that's going to be around this temple. It's going to be one of those HOA communities. So yeah, every situation's different, and it's just so fascinating to watch. So I don't know. Do you think we've covered it? I hope people have understood. It's very convoluted.
Yeah, I think so. I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm happy. Are you happy, Landon?
I'm happy.
We're happy. I know. What would you say? I get this question all the time. Don't you guys have anything better to do? I mean,
nope.
We kind of heard this on Word Radio. People are questioning why we do this. What would you say to that, Nemo? I mean,
I have nothing better to do than to defend people from my church when it's behaving badly. I have nothing better to do than that with my life.
Yep. And that's
when my church behaves well, fine. Don't need to get involved. But when I see my institution, my church, treating towns like this, I was taught by that same church that the right thing to do is to stand up for them. And some people have said, I don't know who said this, but some people have been saying that, well, you're an anti-Mormon and you're a lefty, and the people in Texas are on the right wing politically, and they normally wouldn't like you. What was it Jesus said about loving those who despitefully use you? Yeah. Right? Even if that were the case, even if I were left wing and they were right wing, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
It's still my moral. It's still the moral imperative for me as someone who's trying to be like Jesus to go and stand up for those people when they're being mistreated by an organization that is doing what it's doing and playing the games it's playing.
But Nemo, that goes back to what we just discussed. They want you to stand up for what's morally right as long as it's not against them.
Yeah. Yes.
As soon as you stand up for what's morally right that opposes them, they want to put limits on that and restrict you from doing so.
It's true. And I have to point out that we do support residents in Nevada, in Las Vegas, not conservative. I mean, if we're going to use stereotypes, Bakersfield, California, it's not about political party lines at all. It's about moral behavior. It's about hoping there could be better behavior. And it's about people, that are trying to work through this. So that's why we do it, I think, because we love it.
I don't think anyone we've talked to have we said, well, what's your political party and what's your political
I don't even know what anybody's politics are. They don't even know what our politics are. Exactly. I know, it's a very strange argument. Yeah, I thought that was really weird. So anyway, all right. I think we've done it. We could just go on and on and on, but we are so grateful that Nemo came on with us. This has just been, I know, it's like, well, for Nemo, it's about bedtime, right? There it is. Fairview United.
I've still got a video to edit.
Oh, he's still got a video. That's right. And I hope that everybody, this will air, this will be Tuesday. And so I hope everybody has already been watching the video that Nemo is going to drop on Sunday. If you haven't, please go check that out because, we kind of do this long form stuff where we go on and on, but Nemo's so good at just getting that information out there so clearly so that you can understand. And I know that he's going to take a lot of things we talked about here and be able to put them out so that everybody can just understand, because really Fairview members and residents, you're on the same page as far as this, you can look at this and understand it and everybody can just get along again. Right. That's my hope. So anyway, please go ahead.
We should mention Fairview United just came out with a new webpage.
A new webpage. So
anyone wants information on that?
It's amazing.
You can go to
that. We'll put it in the show notes. We'll link it in the show notes. But do you have it right now, the URL at all?
No, I could probably get it pretty quick.
Yeah, it literally just came out. It has all these documents.
Like FairviewUnited.net, I think, is.
FairviewUnited.net. Okay, so please, everybody, go check that out. And I know that Vegas has a really robust website too, the Lone Mountain. So anyway, just check it out. It's really fascinating. Maybe you guys will become obsessed with temple watching like we are too. So please comment, please like and subscribe to Mormonish Podcast. And if anybody would like to help financially support us so we can continue to watch temples and have amazing guests like Nemo on, there are links in the show notes for a 501(c), and so donor boxes there that you can set something up. It really helps us. We really, really appreciate those of you that do help contribute to us financially. We also have links to our merch store. We have mugs, all kinds of cool things. I always have to remind Landon, hold up your mug. That's right. Merch, very fun. Anyway, so thank you,
my mom always said no one wants to see my mug.
No one wants to see your mug. Well, here we want to see your mug. So that's right. And thanks again to Nemo. We just love collaborating with you on all this. And I just love it that we're,
my pleasure,
across the pond and here. And we're just, we're helping and we're making a difference, I think. So
where will I fly to next?
Where will you fly to? Well, we may all end up in Texas on the 6th. That would be pretty amazing. We'll have to go out to dinner because we've never met in person, have we?
We have not.
That would be really fun. Everybody, all roads lead to Fairview, Texas at this point.
Indeed.
That's how it is. So.
Indeed.
All right, everybody. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everybody. Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.